welcome to our coverage of Clutch Chess, the Champions Showdown. My name is Fiona Steil-Anthony, and I'm delighted to be reunited with my old friend and foe, Grandmaster Jan Ludwig Hammer. Hammer, how are you doing? I don't know. I always have to go out there a little bit.
I thought I was doing okay, and now I'm suddenly on your list of foes, and I'm concerned.
I gotta keep you on your toes, Hammer.
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be an exciting couple of days of chess. Very unique format, and the very biggest players that we like to see on this stage: Magnus, Hikaru, Fabi, and the world champion. So looking forward to it.
The top 3 players in the world by rating, joined by the reigning world champion. It promises to be quite a show. As you mentioned, a format that I don't think we have quite seen before. So first of all, what are we going to see? It's only 4 players. We will see a triple a double round robin. Basically, we'll see a double round robin every single day, today, tomorrow, and the day after that, meaning that each players will play each other 4 times, 6 times, 6 times. And the point system is also very different in that the later in the tournament you score, the points you'll score. So today we'll see the classical point system, 1 point for a win, half a point for a draw, and then from tomorrow, Hammer, it gets interesting.
Yeah, 2 points for a win tomorrow, doubling that score, but also doubling the points for a draw. And then on the final day, if you're lagging behind, you still have the opportunity to catch up because it's 3 points for a win on the final day. And this tries to solve a problem chess tournaments have had. For instance, in the Grand Chess Tour, it's quite common that the tournament is decided like 4 or 5 rounds before the end because they play so many games, and someone has sometimes gotten a big lead at that point. And so the 3 points on the final day is trying to remedy this by keeping the excitement all the way to the end. And the prizes also are very much incentivizing fighting chess because you are rewarded extra per win that you get.
Yeah, so a lot at stake here, of course, tournament victory, but every single win counts. The further you go in the tournament, even the wins will count even more. One player that has been known to run away with tournaments at times is making his return here to St. Louis Chess Club for the first time since 2022. Since that fateful Field Cup. It'll be very interesting to see how Magnus fares. He's playing against Gukesh this first round. As we can see, Hikaru is at the board. He's starting with black against the recently crowned US champion, Fabiano Caruana. What do you expect, Hammer, from, this incredible field in this new format?
Well, I'm expecting that Hikaru and Magnus are going to be the 2 favorites. Gukesh has a reputation for not being as good outside of the classical time format. This will be his opportunity to disprove that. Previously, Fabiano Caruana had the reputation of not being very good in the quicker time formats, but he's really worked on that part of his game, realizing also, for instance, during the pandemic, that the rapid time controls, they are here to stay and maybe even take over a bit for the classical ones. So Fabiano has made big improvements as a rapid player, but coming up against Hikaru and Magnus, is it going to be enough? That's going to be interesting to see.
And we have left off the last thing we haven't mentioned. We talked about the rapid time control. It is 10 minutes plus a 5-second increment per move. And Hammer, an early G6. Is this the first surprise?
I would say it's definitely a surprise. Yeah, this is called the hyper accelerated dragon. Hikaru has played it in the past. As far as I recall, he played it against Gukesh in the candidates tournament, where Gukesh qualified to the world championship match. So it's not something that is unfamiliar for Hikaru. It is something he has done before, but it is also a quite unusual way of playing. So let's see if Fabi can put him under pressure with the white pieces, which Fabi has a reputation of being able to do.
Would you say that playing the hyper accelerated dragon is an aggressive approach to this game?
I think so. I think it's you're trying a lot. You're really trying to get an optimal version of the dragon. And the early surprise here from Fabiano when he just moved his bishop out. Normally in the Sicilian, we see white push their pawn forward in the center very early on. Getting the bishop out first is quite unusual from Fabi, and it did force Hikaru to think a bit about his play moving forward. With this bishop pointing down towards the black king, it's a very traditional way of playing what Hikaru has done right now, putting his pawn in the way of the white bishop and potentially also reinforcing an advance in the center to try and chase that bishop away.
And I guess the question now for Fabiano, will he revert to playing d4 anyway, transposing into some kind of open Sicilians? Or can he set up with potentially, I don't know, c3, d3 or c3, d4? What are the options for Fabi here?
Yeah, I think you got it spot on. Either you go very aggressive immediately with that pawn push, which he did, and now look at how Hikaru has put all his pawns on the light squares of the board. This means that he has poor control of the dark squares, and in particular, cause for concern the d6 square. So Fabi's going to try to take advantage of this square and potentially also here and here, these dark squares where the black pawns has completely surrendered that control. That's going to be what Fabiano tries to exploit. Hikaru, on the other hand, he's reasonably happy with the fact that he has two pawns in the most central files on the board, whereas white only has one.
Yeah, and we can see Fabiano immediately exerting that pressure along the dark squared color complex, pinning the knight from a7 to the queen. If you're black here, the only way for now to break the pin would be to play f6. That's not a move you want to make. And I'm not sure about chasing the bishop with h6, g5. Feels a little bit risky at this stage.
I think that's what Fabi is looking for because of that d6 e5 squares, those dark squares we talked about.
Yeah, so the ball is back in Hikaru's court. The question is bishop g5. I guess there is no concrete threat, so potentially he can simply castle and solve his problems later on. Or can he also just play? Well, I guess knight c6. Okay, the pawn play continues. b5, not chasing the bishop on g5, but asking the light squared bishop where it wants to retreat to.
Clearly, the next move for Hikaru is going to be bishop to b7. So he wants to get this bishop out early, exerting that double bishop influence in towards the center of the board. The question is, how will Hikaru react when Fabi starts putting pressure on this most advanced white black pawn? Because black is lagging a bit behind in getting the pieces out. And so white will usually be favored if they can start creating conflict early on.
By the way, there was a question in the chat earlier. Does this count towards Hikaru's candidates games? No, it does not. So Hikaru still needs 5 games. I don't think there's any news yet about where or when he will play, but rest assured he will find 5 games to play before the year ends. And for now, we saw 2 developing moves. And as
Yeah,
you Yeah, I'm glad the king is out of the center, and I imagine the move you were just talking about, bishop b7, will be a natural follow-up, but then we'll have to answer that question. How do we deal with this a4 pawn push you were talking about?
Yeah, and Hikaru's not entirely sure what to do, which is why he's spending more time than Fabi in this phase of the game. So Fabi can be very, very happy about having the time advantage against Hikaru because you know if the game comes into a scramble, Hikaru is very well versed there.
How do you, is 10 plus 5 a time control that these players are used to playing?
No, it's very unusual.
Mm,
The in the World Rapid Championship, they play 15 plus 10,
mm-hmm,
which is significantly more time. We had during the Champions Chess Tour, they were playing 15 plus 2,
mm-hmm,
which I guess is pretty similar. Because the Champions Chess Tour was played online, and then 15 plus 2, it feels, in general, you need a bit more time when playing
mm.
over the board. So 15 plus 2 online seems about the same as 10 plus 2 online is about the same as 10 plus 5
Yeah, I was
over
gonna
the board.
say make the same point before we look at this f6 move, which is a second ago I said I don't really want to push that pawn, but I think once the players get down to their increment, the 5 seconds will feel very little. But let's talk about f6, pros and cons, Hammer. Pro, we chase the bishop.
Yeah, a big con though. It blocks the black bishop on the diagonal. And so I think the only way Hikaru's playing a move like this is if he's intending on pushing it further forward very, very soon afterwards. I would even go as far as to say he's going to do it right now. Because if he pushes this pawn up, suddenly we've opened up for the bishop again. And now there's some tricks in the position as the black pawn threatens to keep going forward and trapping the white bishop. So I'm expecting Hikaru to push this pawn up further because he really, the point of the previous move was not to block his own bishop. He wants that to be a very temporary situation.
What about another pawn break? Well, that you mentioned earlier, that pawn break being the e5, which just appeared on the board.
Yeah,
How
very
do
interesting. Okay, so Hikaru's basically saying, I want to remove these two pawns, and then I want to be left with a situation where I'm the only one with a pawn in the two most central files of the board. And if Hikaru could have made this trade and then advanced his central pawns, that would have been very, very good. But look at this from Fabiano. He's making sure that the two black pawns in the center cannot advance without getting interrupted by this white pawn in return. And now Hikaru's struggling to get his bishop back into life. Because if now he pushes that pawn forward, which we talked about earlier, there's an extra option for white. The advance of the f pawn has facilitated the advance of its buddy as well. And here, the white pawns are completely blocking the black bishop out of play. And this would be a very bad position for Hikaru.
let's see, what did he do? Okay, he is getting close to achieving his development. Hammer, why does the eval bar like white so much? Is it to do with more space? Is it to do with the band bishop on g7? What are the
I
main?
think it's very concrete right now. I think it has to do with this bishop. I think Hikaru's bishop is struggling to find a placement, and it has to do with this knight coming here to the b3 square. So far, I think Fabi has played a fantastic game, and if Hikaru brings the bishop out, that bishop may get some pressure on it from the knight. Actually, he might still want to move this bishop out come to think of it, because at least then you're giving protection to the central pawn. Hikaru instead chooses to move his rook into the center, attacking the white bishop, which is then protected by the queen.
And interestingly, that move wasn't totally approved because of this f5 shot. And I think what Hikaru wants to do next is push d5. That pawn currently is an isolated pawn, which means it's not defended by any pawn friends. And if you want, if you can, you want to get rid of that. I think if Hikaru manages to realize that the d4 push and exchange, he will be fine here.
Yeah, but I don't see it happening. Number one, the bishop can move away, which would open up for the queen to control that square we're trying to push the pawn to. And number two, there's a queen over here where the queen and bishop together would control that d4 square. Um, I, I'm not sure where we're going to put this light squared bishop long term. Once again, Hikaru has all his pawns on the light squares, and the pawns are blocking the prospect of this bishop in several directions. He needs to get rid of these pawns for the light squared bishop to have any sort of influence on the board.
Do you think we just have to resign ourselves to put the bishop on f7 for now?
Yeah, I think moving the bishop over here, it would protect the king. It would protect this pawn in the middle. I think basically you just want to get it out of the way. Okay, now I like this for Hikaru. So Fabi is voluntarily giving himself an isolated pawn in the center because he wants to make the trade between the dark squared bishops, right? Well, because Hikaru's light squared bishop is so bad, it means that his dark square bishop has to carry so much of the slack. And that's why Fabi's trying to go for a trade between these two, trading off the best piece Hikaru has. That being said, I still think Hikaru should go for this trade because I'm imagining some kind of scenario in the future. Oh, I don't like the rooks coming to these squares though. But I was imagining some kind of situation where we sacrifice our rook in the center. Yeah, no, computer hates that idea.
I
Yeah,
mean,
Hikaru's under pressure here.
I was with you at first. I was very tempted to exchange, but that endgame looks like so much suffering. I see the computer is advocating for knight a5, I guess with the idea to try and jump into c4. But yeah, interesting that Hikaru decides not to make the trade. But can't Fabiano just trade himself and play bishop
Yeah,
e4
now
now?
Fabi makes the trade and the bishop comes in.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same situation as if Hikaru had traded himself. Um, yeah, I'm
This
not
is
liking the position. I definitely dislike the position more than the computers are. The computers are saying like black is worse, but it's not a disaster. To me, it looks like a disaster. Hikaru needs to make this trade, and he does. And now the potential of these white rooks establishing themselves on dark squares is terrifying because we don't have any more pieces as black that can chase away dark squared outposts. All our pawns are on the light squares, not controlling the dark squares at all. Our bishop cannot kick the rooks away. This looks awful. I think Fabi has played a fantastic game so far, but Hikaru has that reputation as a defensive player, and time is ticking down as well.
Yeah, I mean, Hikaru surely has his work cut out for him here to hold what is not going to be a fun endgame to play. It's not hopeless though, and the times are ticking down. The players are now basically playing a blitz game at this point. So not the start that Hikaru was hoping for sure, but is going to have to fight. Hammer, why can't we come in on e4 now
I
and
mean,
try and
we
double?
can, we should, I would say. I wanted to go here even when the white bishop was protecting this square. So you know I want to do it now. Okay, Hikaru's trying to put his rook on. No.
Let me ask you a general question. Who wants to trade which pieces here? If you black, do you want to ideally get all the rooks off? If you white, do you want to keep both rooks, keep one rook? I always struggle to answer these
You're
questions.
asking very difficult questions right now.
That's why you're here, Hammer. Last time I was on
Um,
my own, you had deserted me. I was left to fend for myself. Now I've got you here. I'm gonna ask the hard-hitting questions.
I think basically Hikaru's position is going to be bad no matter what.
The ever
Um,
optimistic answer.
yeah,
Good to see. The real Hammer is back.
yeah. I'm not entirely. I would say maybe Hikaru wants to trade all rooks,
Mm.
but oh, there's some nasty weaknesses in Black's position if that happens. There's some nasty weaknesses even if it doesn't happen. So
If we could trade the queen and both rooks, that would
then
be
then that would
that
be a
should
big
hold,
success.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if we trade off all the heavy pieces, I think we should be able to grovel to a draw
Mm-hmm.
because white doesn't really have a way to get their king into our half of the board. Okay,
Okay.
so Fabi is establishing his rook on this e5 outpost. That makes a lot of sense. And he's also going to advance his pawn here on the side to try and poke at the black king. Although if Fabi goes pawn 2 steps forward on the king side, we might just reply in the same fashion and just try and block off everything. Yeah, I think maybe we stop that.
H5. When
I'm
did you
I'm
get so
encouraged by
brave,
the fact that
Hammer?
it's the computer
Uh,
top choice as well.
is H5 by white, I guess, is very scary, right?
It's not super scary, but H6 is very scary.
Mm.
So we need to stop it before it gets here. And then we might as well stop it here because also if white gets to play h5, there's some situations where white can use the fact that there's no pawn on the h4 square to move his king up. So one of the benefits of making this blocking move, which Hikaru did, is that now there's absolutely no chance for the white king to make entry on the king side, which means now we only have to defend the queen side in a lot of endgames.
It feels to me like we are making a little progress here.
Yeah, I really like the b4 move from Hikaru. He's been stuck with all the pawns on the light squares for such a long time. Getting some pawns to control dark squares is a big success. And he's going to follow up with pawn to a5 afterwards. And then black is doing good on, this side of the board. And then we're blockading this. And Fabiano's time usage for the past couple of moves has clearly indicated that he's not sure where to move forward.
I'm really surprised by this rook c1 move. I really thought the rook was gonna come and establish itself on e5. If I were black, I would probably just trade and, play queen c6, queen e6, try and fight for the two open lines. But what is it?
Yeah, I
What is
think we're scared of these two squares, the outposts,
queen
protected by a
c5?
pawn, is the thing we have to be a bit careful
And
of.
that endgame is that endgame is dead lost simply.
Well, so the thing is, we like the white pawns where they are because they're
Mm.
actually blockading the king's ability of getting into black's half. So white needs to preferably move this one on d4 in order for the king to take over the pawn's positioning. So in some situations here, if Fabi sacrifices this pawn, Hikaru might not even want to take it
Mm-hmm.
because he wants the white pawn there because the king cannot get to the square itself. And
Hikaru
that's part of
spending
the reasoning for this queen maneuver.
he's spending a lot of time on this move, down to a minute 30 now. The question is, if you don't want to make the trade yourself, okay, a5 is a move you had predicted, which makes sense. But isn't the white queen gonna infiltrate along the c-file now?
Yeah, so takes, queen back. Okay, take, queen back, bishop. And now if the queen moves up, then we have a counterattack
Ah,
against the king.
okay.
So the king will probably need to move up here to kind of protect
Mhm.
these things.
By the way, anyone asking about Magnus, we will review that game as soon as Hikaru's game has ended. But for
And here,
now,
computer is saying Hikaru's winning because he managed to get his king over in time.
Emma, you're a magician. I looked away for 1 second and suddenly we were winning.
Well, things happen in time scrambles and when the hammer is making the moves.
Yeah, and we really are in a time scramble now. Both players around the minute 30 mark. I've become a lot more optimistic over the last few moves. I don't think we're out of the woods yet. But Hammer, aren't we following the variation where suddenly Hikaru was winning?
We are, but I suspect Fabi will improve on the suggestions I had. He's definitely going to bring his king, but I think he might bring his king to the center rather than put it out on the side, as I was suggesting. Simply because he ultimately this king wants to stand on the d4 square, so it makes sense just getting as close to that square as possible. I'm
Um,
somewhat concerned that Hikaru needs to adopt a very passive queen back situation, which looks very, very scary long term.
yeah, I mean, this is really not a. Oh,
Ooh, question mark. Hikaru got a question mark, which sees Fabi immediately grab the opportunity to try and get the queen trade. And now there's a clear path for the king to the d4 square. So Hikaru had to push to make sure that the king cannot get over here. Fabi has a pawn 3 squares away from becoming a new queen. There's an issue with all of these pawns being on the light squares and the bishop potentially trying to attack them. But for now, it seems okay. I'm not sure why the computer is so unhappy on Hikaru's behalf. Hikaru's protecting all of these squares. Oh, and he's even rerouting his bishop. That kind of seemed smart to me.
although looking at the camera, Hikaru is shaking his
Yeah, but
head.
why? Isn't this clever? Okay, so is there some kind of idea here that you can sacrifice everything and then white has pawns on 2 sides? Computer says this is winning for
That's a
Hikaru.
crazy endgame.
It looked kind of convincing for white because white was about to get a new queen, but there may have been some checkmating ideas there.
But is White just gonna go and pick up?
Yeah. So now, if bishop e4, this was Hikaru's plan, but unfortunately, the pawn threatens to become a new queen. The king has to step over, but when the king steps over, the king is no longer protecting the f7 square, allowing the white bishop to capture those pawns, including the pawn that I said that Hikaru should move up on a light square on the king side.
Yeah.
Wow. I gotta say, this has been an amazing game by Fabi. He has played this so well.
Yeah, I was curious ahead of the tournament. I mean, Fabi did just finish playing in the US Championship a couple of days ago. Gukesh was playing in the European Club Cup. The US Championship, I mean, almost twice as long a tournament. But Gukesh had to fly halfway across the world. So I was curious how it was going to affect them respectively. But Fabi showing no signs of fatigue. I mean, he barely made a step to foot wrong in this first game.
Well, actually, it's not over yet. I'm not sure how Fabi's going to win this. Ooh, that might do it. I think Hikaru should just allow the trade. No.
So
So
can't you just run the king to d4, d2 for starters? And
yeah, but where are you ultimately trying to go? So
um,
Hikaru's going to block by pushing his king over here. Yeah. No, this is good. If we just move back and forth
what if
over
I
here,
play as white something like bishop d5, b3, bishops? No.
maybe you can go bishop d5 and then move the king over. Because if you go king here, I'm just going to go bishop here, and the bishop is controlling. Like Hikaru has some kind of defensive formation
Yeah,
here
but
that he's controlling.
if I go bishop d5, b3, and bishop c4.
Okay, yeah, no, that's a very good plan, Fiona. But will Fabi find it? So what Fiona is saying is that you put the bishop here, then go b3, then try and make the trade. Hikaru cannot afford to make the trade, but then the king manages to get across that third rank barricade. But so far, Fabi's not finding that plan.
So
And both
now,
players down to 20 seconds.
okay, so far no progress made, but here comes the h pawn.
Yeah, this is bad news. The bishop is eyeing the pawn. So this pawn on the side is just going to sacrifice itself. Hikaru's going to take it, but that allows Fabi to take out the... Ooh. Wow. G5?
No, g5 was good too, but
Yeah, no, but this is
like
just
all the
over.
moves were.
Yeah, this
And
is
there's
just
the
getting it,
handshake.
getting the bishop. Wow, that was I'm very impressed by Fabiano. I don't think Hikaru played this game poorly. He did make one mistake. This bishop out on a6 was a mistake because it allowed the queen to come in. We had thought that the queen coming in was not that big of an issue because of queen takes on f4. But the thing is, with the bishop out here on the edge, yeah, that this leads to some very scary attacks against the king.
Very, very impressive stuff by Fabi. There will now be a 5-minute break before the players return with colors reversed. Let's check out what happened in the first game between Magnus Carlsen and Gukesh.
And Magnus has joined, or rather, Fabi has joined Magnus in the lead.
It looks to me like, well, we'll get to the final position in a second, but for those who were paying attention, the evil bar was exactly in the middle in the final position, which makes me think, did we see a loss on time here? Let's go through it, Hammer.
Magnus going for the Philidor opening. Quite unusual at this level. It's an opening where you keep a lot of pieces on the board, so it's definitely quite combative. No trades happening until the pawns trade in the middle. White seems to have very good central influence. But Magnus, okay, he puts the knights on the king's side. Seems pretty decent for Gukesh still. Still seems good for white. Rook takes here, maybe? No, makes the trade in the center. The black pawn structure, these pawns are not working together whatsoever. Right now, Magnus is up a pawn, but that pawn can be captured at any moment. Wow. Gukesh was just completely outplaying Carlsen. Look at this. Black has two isolated pawns. The bishop is way better than its counterpart. The rook is way better than its counterpart. Everything here in white's favor, as I see it. Okay, the queen with the double attack, but that can be defended against. Okay, so far so good for Gukesh. And now he even wins this pawn because, well, you cannot take because then the rook is in trouble behind. However, Magnus had anticipated this and was ready to start an attack against the white king. If Gukesh now captures the pawn on a5, it's a counter attack and actually forced checkmate. So instead, Gukesh is trying to kick the queen away. And here, Gukesh could have still had a good position if he'd gone back into defense, but he wanted to get a new queen, allowing Magnus to threaten the immediate checkmate. The queen defends for now. Bishop c.
What's bishop c5?
It prevents a7. It's not even about, it doesn't even have anything to do with attacking. It's actually a defensive move that if white now tries to queen their pawn, that pawn can be captured. And if queen takes, that's fair enough. That's checkmate. But if bishop takes, bishop takes doesn't work either because then the knight gets away to get in.
Is so nice.
Wow. Okay, so what's next then? The queen moves back. Magnus trades, but now this guy is alive and kicking again. Okay, but Magnus once again tries to stop it. And then after rook back. Okay, so rook back was a mistake with 14 seconds remaining. Computer says now if knight h4, it's winning for black due to the trick that Magnus was trying to do in the game with the queen attacking both the king and the rook. However,
Hammer, we have to be really fast. Game 2 started. Let's just show this final position. We don't know what happened. Did Gukesh lose on
yeah,
time?
no,
Did he not
Gukesh resigned.
spot?
Gukesh resigned because he saw if he takes the knight, then it's a double attack, winning the game. But he didn't realize that he could just sacrifice his queen because the pawn is so strong.
Crazy. Okay, well, that was insane first game between Magnus and Gukesh. We are now off with the second game. There was a question earlier. Is Hikaru gonna play anyone else today? Well, he will play everyone on every of the 3 days. And next up for him is Gukesh. But first, he will try to strike back here against Fabiano with the white pieces hammer. Let's do a quick action replay of the opening.
Yeah, Hikaru going out very aggressively with this f3 move, trying to just establish all his pawns in the center of the board. And Fabi, very unusual for him, is adopting a King's Indian defense setup. So this is an opening that Hikaru is quite famed for playing with the black pieces. Fabi, not so much. So let's see what Hikaru can do against one of his favorite openings.
Interesting psychological choice for starters by Fabi playing one of Hikaru's famed old weapons against him. But Fabi is the first in the tank here. Hammer, for all those in the chat who, like me, are complete noobs in this opening, can you tell us a little bit about just the main ideas?
Yeah, so in general, white puts the knight over here simply because you're just trying to get the knight out of the way. And basically, this knight struggles finding a good placement for a long time. And oftentimes, what will happen is that the knight moves out here, but then gets chased by the black pawn storming up the side of the board. And then the knight has to continue rerouting itself. But if the knight gets to the e3 square, white is normally doing very, very well. Uh,
Knight
question mark, that's a bit
e5.
harsh.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Seems very harsh. And just a final question, the white king? I mean, does
We're
it
gonna
always
castle
go
king
king
side.
side?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. There's not enough pawns over here to protect the king to go queen side. So the white king is definitely going over here. It's just it takes a while because of all the trying to get a pawn grip in the center that has been going on first.
But do we castle first, or do we have time to maybe reroute the knight to e3 before castling?
Okay, Hikaru
Castle
castle. That's
first.
good enough for me.
Saved by the gong. And okay, I guess white's main idea is to attack. Surely this isn't gonna be a positional grind hammer.
Well, it is kind of positional, right? Because black is trying to expand on the queen side, and white is trying to expand through the center. But then you always have to be attentive to what the opponent is doing before you proceed with your own plans. So now a typical move in this kind of situation would be to go pawn to a5, because
Mhm.
then black can no longer create the pawns protecting one another on the queen side, because you can do the en passant and prevent that. And then black says, well, now you're opening up for my queen, maybe a rook, maybe a bishop, that are all pointing in the same general direction. Um, so it's filled with difficult strategic decisions, but that's kind of what Hikaru wanted when he chose this opening. So I feel like he's got to be happy with what he's seen so far.
You know this A5 move you were talking about, I always feel so in two minds in my own games. Because, like, on one hand, I understand, yes, after B5, I can take en passant, but I'm always so worried about that pawn just becoming a long-term weakness, and I'm never quite sure how to balance out, how to decide when it's a good idea or not.
And look at this, Hikaru's even thinking about it. Hikaru's not automatically doing the en passant,
Mhm.
because right now I'm thinking maybe he wants to try and put his knight on the b4 square, because then he could have some interesting pressure with the knight towards this pawn while really blockading the dark squares, making sure that, okay, these black pawns are protecting one another, but that they're not able to push further forward. And that's what Hikaru does.
Wow. I mean, Punk had a point in chat, though, saying en passant is forced. How could Hikaru not know that? Man's been playing chess all his life, doesn't even know what passant is forced.
I mean, one thing is the memes, but the other thing is that he very clearly, with his previous move, intended the en passant.
Hmm.
What was the point of pushing this pawn up if not to prevent the move that Fabiano then played? But Hikaru says that no, actually, this pawn is doing a good job blockading on the dark squares, making sure that the black pawns are able to defend each other but not push further.
You know who I've spotted in the chat, Hammer? Schrödinger's cat. It was with you that we had the big Schrödinger's cat discussion, right? And it suddenly reminded me I need to go back again. I'm not something about the cat both being dead and not dead, but thanks for the reminder, Schrödinger. H6 hammer, what is that about? Why can't I gobble up that pawn?
Well, so the queen is protecting the a5 pawn. So Hikaru retreats to make sure that his new plan of putting everything on dark squares is working out. And I like this from Hikaru, but computer wasn't too happy. I don't really understand why computer. I mean, in my world, the bishop just got to an improved placement. But the computer is making the argument that with the bishop having retreated, it opens up for the black pawn to push further forward because the h4 square is no longer protected. But in this opening, it's normal that your knight gets kicked around. So I don't feel too bad about allowing the further advance because we're going to get that knight to the very nice f2 square anyway.
Mm-hmm. But why is f2 such a nice square?
Because we're trying to facilitate pawn to f4. That's our very long-term goal. Hikaru has postponed that advance because he wants to prioritize countering black's play on the queen side. So he's right now he's stopping the black counterplay so that when the time is right, he will have a free hand to push his pawns forward through the center. Now, in order to play f4, you need to find something else to protect the e4 pawn. And that's where the knight on f2 comes in. The knight is going to be very well placed here because it helps protect both the e4 pawn and the g4 square, both of which will be weakened as we make our advance.
Knight h7, was that about freeing up f6 for the other knight? Or just...
It's either about pushing f5 or g5.
Oh. So
So
if we start kicking around the knight on e5, if we play f4, the knight will jump to g4, I guess.
well, then we lose our bishops. But then
You
it
could
might be
play bishop
decided.
e6, hammer. Hold
Yeah,
on.
yeah, I suppose.
But yeah, wow, look at the computer.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah, we need
So
to watch out
apparently
for
we
that bishop
haven't
on
really,
g7.
yeah, we haven't
Also,
completed our dark square blockade
but
just
that
yet.
also means that knight h7 was also in big part to just open up the bishop from g7, maybe.
Yeah. Well, it's a bit of everything, right?
Yeah.
And so Hikaru wants to go with the knight here and then push the pawn, but this allows pawn to g5, which then takes some of the sting out of this pawn chasing the central knight away because, well, now you lose your pawn and there's no pawns left that can get the black knight out of position. Very difficult strategic situation for Hikaru. He might actually be better off pushing this pawn now, giving up one of his bishops, but then at least getting his knight where he wants it to go, defending the pawn in the center and chasing the bishop. And Hikaru does go for that after thinking for 2 minutes, a big time investment here, but it's paid off and he made the move the computer recommended.
I mean, these guys are just so good at identifying what the critical moments in a game are, and then investing their time here. And here, I think what you're saying, Hammer, is this was a good investment of the 2 minutes on the clock. Fabiano is still thinking, does he even have a choice but going to g4?
I'm looking at the suggested moves, Fiona.
Mm-hmm.
There's some wild, crazy stuff being suggested here. With trying to just put everything on the e file, and even though white is up a bishop, it's trouble trying to keep the two bishops defended on the same file.
And Fabi has made a move. He goes to g4, which I
Quick,
think we're happy to see.
yeah, quick moves from Hikaru. He gets the coordination of his pieces the way he wanted. And now Fabi has the long-term advantage of the two bishops working together, but Hikaru is going to stop that on the very next move because part of the plan of these solidifying the control of the dark squares on the queen side there's also a dark square in the center that Hikaru has control over, and he can move his bishop there on the next move.
I really like the way this is turning right now. Hikaru, after investing 2 minutes, found the best sequence of moves. He has a firm grip on the position. He is also up over a minute on the clock. After we achieve all this, Hammer, we put the bishop on d4. Is the long-term plan then going to push the central pawns?
Yeah.
Just steamroll.
Yeah.
Knight
But we got to
f6.
make sure that we get to keep the central pawns. And
Yeah.
this seemed to me like a very, very good move from Fabiano. But fortunately, Hikaru is able to move his bishop out of the way, threaten the queen, and then get a rook in behind to reinforce his central pawns. So if not for this bishop move, Hikaru's center would have collapsed there. But now he's able to keep everything defended. H3. I was going to go G3 here, but the computer hates that because now there's a new avenue for Fabi to attack our center.
H3 is a very sneaky move. The
And
computer tells us only one move, yeah, to keep the big advantage, which is crazy.
And this is fantastic because the idea is to basically just reinforce the E4 pawn as many times as possible. And
I don't
the
think
only
that's an
way.
easy move to spot. Just looking at the camera, I mean, Hikaru is shaking his head. I don't think he's seeing rook e3 at the moment. And the problem, if you don't see rook e3, then the bishop will land on f3, right?
Yeah, but I mean, even with rook, I mean, even this, it looks kind of terrifying, no? It looks
What do you
like
even do
things
here?
are tricky. I
Yeah,
guess
this
you
is
move the rook over. I don't know. It's very, very complicated. Computer likes white, but it's based on a very non-human move. And this could go either way.
Yeah, we see Hikaru in the tank here. I was meanwhile wondering if St. Louis had fixed their cameras, but no, we still get the huge bicep. Yeah, rookie 3 here. I mean, but even that line you showed, Hammer, even if he finds rookie 3, this line with bishop h6 in
I don't
range,
even understand why we cannot just take this.
maybe we can.
Like, why do we have to reinforce the central pawn? Why don't
Let's
we
just
just
see.
take the pawn? We're struggling to keep this pawn protected.
I mean, how is this good for white? This looks
But in that
so,
case,
so
what happens if
scary.
here? Here we trap the bishop because there's no knight takes with a check.
Hammer, unfortunately, well, g3 was played, which allows bishop f3 played instantly by Fabi. And I think Hikaru needs to be a little bit careful now because somehow the tide is turning. The players sense it too. With the last couple of moves, Hikaru sort of lost the control over the position.
Here says
Now,
Hikaru has to sacrifice his rook, otherwise he's going to lose. And he does. Fantastic move by Hikaru. Prioritizing putting pressure on this knight and on the bishop to make sure that the pawn on e4 lives. Now, unfortunately, the result of this move is that the rook is trapped. But Hikaru made the judgment that it's more important to keep the pawn formation in the center intact rather than to help the rook.
and why do we even, I mean, where is the full compensation for the exchange?
I mean, look at this knight, though. This knight is incredible, and it's forcing the black rook to stay in defense for a very, very, very long time. So basically, the reasoning for the reasoning for why the computer thought this was a good position for Hikaru still is that the black rooks is unable to accomplish much.
Double question mark seems harsh.
Harsh. I don't understand what. Okay, so Hikaru wants to prevent the black rooks from getting into the game. So he wants to prevent pawn to f5, which would encourage opening up some files for the black rooks. So Hikaru is trying to stand in the way, and now Fabi can get a draw if he wants by going back and forth. I think.
I don't think.
No, Hikaru's going for the win.
But what if Fabi goes back anyway to G7? Oh, there is no more. Yeah, there is no more.
Well, then he doesn't threaten f5
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
So by relocating his queen, Hikaru's making sure that pawn to f5, trying to open up for the black rooks, is no longer viable. Although it is is the queen getting tracked?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'd be very, very careful about that queen. I mean, if I'm white, I'm playing f5 without too much second thought, just to make sure that queen stays alive, but... I mean...
Right now, equal on material, both players with 3 minutes on the clock, but Fabi has a rook he can capture at an opportune moment. This might be the moment. I don't know. Hikaru went into this on purpose, Fiona. I still feel like his position looks okay.
Yeah, it feels like with the knight coming to g4, the other knight, you know, hopping into c6, potentially back to d4, eyeing up e6. Oh, wow. And just like that, we are so back in this game.
I don't get why was it important taking. Oh, Hikaru's going to illustrate why. Oh, look at this. Basically, Fabi made the right moves, but he did them in the wrong order. And now the black queen has no good squares. If the queen tries to remain close to the king, Hikaru's not even going to take back the bishop. He's going to go knight to g4, trapping the queen. The queen has no free squares to go to, even though it's basically in the middle of the board. And so
That is
that's
so sick.
forcing Fabi to move his queen away from the king, after which, like we were talking about, is this really that bad for Hikaru? Because like he's got some massive attacking chances going on. And indeed, that is why the computer now says Hikaru might win this.
And clearly Fabi taken by surprise by this nice little Zwischenzug. When you weren't here, Hammer, I had a field day explaining Zwischenzug to chat. So if you weren't here last time, maybe another time again, but a very important in-between move or an intermezzo, whatever you want to call it, that was missed by Fabi, who's now burning down the clock. Where did he go to, Hammer?
Fabi went to the queen side. But now let's not overcomplicate matters, maybe. Let's just take the bishop and then try and move the knight forward.
I like that. Is this the first game? This is the second game. Hikaru lost the first game to Fabi and is now looking to equalize this first match.
Fabi's fighting well. He's preventing the knight from getting into the attack. And if Hikaru moves the queen up, which looks very tempting, Fabi's gonna actually just use his rook to blockade the queen's influence down towards the king. That's a very surprising placement for the queen, but I guess the queen is trying to work together with the rook.
Yeah. I mean, this still looks fairly dangerous to me for
Fabi
black.
once again tries to sacrifice the rook in order to, well, basically Fabi's trying to open up the d6 square so that the queen can start to point in towards the defense of its own king. But the knight that Hikaru has is so strong that he should keep the knight instead of capturing the rook.
Then why can't I would like to take on g6 first, just to open up that queen and rook.
Yeah,
guess.
I think Hikaru doesn't want to take there immediately because that allows the. Okay, he does take there. I was thinking this allows the black rook to more easily get into defense because then it can come in and protect the knight.
I
Fabi's
was
fighting
looking
well
at.
here.
He is fighting well. Both players down to a minute and a half. I was looking at knight takes h3. Black is not in time to capture on e4. So I guess rook f8 is needed.
Yeah, because if takes, then we just take the rook.
Yeah.
And everything collapses. So rook f8 makes a lot of sense. And now Hikaru should take the rook. I don't know, but then we lose our pride and
But we
Fabi
take
has
rook.
fought very well here, in my
Jesus,
opinion.
look at Hikaru's bicep. What's oh, that's Jared.
Hikaru does end up taking the rook. He now has an extra pawn, but there's some very scary counterplay on the other side of the board with Fabi potentially getting a new queen. The biggest threat right now is that Hikaru wants to get his knight to the e6 square, where the knight will be attacking the king, the rook, and the queen. Fabi gives a check. Still the big threat of the knight coming in. Apparently, if Fabi had gone knight h7 here just to prevent this maneuver from happening, computer said it was equal. So there's really some scary things with these black pawns potentially.
I can see the pawns being scary. Okay, now knight h7 makes sense, preventing knight coming to g5.
Fabi voluntarily moved his queen away from attacking the pawn a5. That might be why giving the check wasn't optimal.
And
But
interesting.
I'm still scared about this.
Yeah. Interesting to me, the computer wants to trade the knights and play knight g5. I wouldn't feel completely confident about that queen ending. And
Yeah, me
Hikaru
neither.
wants to keep the knights on the board. Makes a lot of sense to me. The knight is looking to reroute to g4.
Yeah, but Fabi once again just makes sure that Hikaru cannot move the knight forward without trading them off. Hikaru has an extra pawn, but this is not obvious how you win this. Fabi down to 30 seconds. Hikaru has 60 seconds. The time might be the deciding factor here.
I mean, queen b6 can never be an idea as long as the knight is in time to come back.
Uh,
Or is it? Did I
I mean, it's
accidentally stumble? I can't believe his eyes. Me neither.
no, it's just it's difficult to get yourself to play this queen to
Yeah.
b6 move because it's very committal and your opponent is very clearly asking for it. As in, please go with the queen here. That's what I'm trying to provoke you into doing. Now, however, it might be a better situation. Hikaru threatens this check, so the knight has to move back. Ooh, the knight does not move back, and Hikaru makes his breakthrough, and now he wins the queen. Let's go. Hikaru equalizes, forcing the king forward, but then the queen will be attacking both the king and the queen on the same row. And Hikaru equalizes this little mini match on day one.
Very nice game. We just saw that second game, not without adventures. I mean, would say the first part of the game, Hikaru was completely in control, and then once Fabiano launched the H pawn, we got a bit of back and forth. We got a little scared, but at the end of a very hard-fought game, Hikaru takes the win. And let's see, Hammer, what happened elsewhere in the second game between Magnus and Gukesh.
The second game between these two guys ended in a draw.
Looked like less adventures than in game one.
A Catalan opening where Gukesh, quite, this is not common, rushed his pawn up on the side of the board. Magnus seems to be getting a nice advantage with pushing his pawn forward in the center. This is very passive play with the bishops from Gukesh. Bishops normally like to be on the side because then they're pointing in towards the center. The normal kind of rule in chess of putting your pawns in the middle doesn't necessarily apply to the bishops because when they are in the middle, they're pointing out to the sides. So this is not giving me a good first impression, but the computer seems to like this way of playing for Gukesh, which is probably why he did it. He has some ideas of trying to go knight to a5 and really control a lot of these light squares on the queen side. Magnus tries to play properly, taking advantage of his opponent's timid play in the center by pushing forward. But after these central trades, the knight eyes some big light squared weaknesses on the queen side. This is a very, very interesting opening from Gukesh.
And look at the time as well. It was clear that all of this was Gukesh's prep.
Yeah, and he did manage to get his bishop, as I was basically begging for, on the one of these diagonals where it's pointing in towards the middle. It just needed a little bit of a detour first. And wow, he takes the pawn in the center. Brave man taking the pawns that Carlsen offers, but I think Gukesh has played some very good chess in these first two rounds. He became the victim of getting short on time and an attack that Magnus made in a bad situation in game one. And here with the black pieces, he's playing very, very well. And if anyone was better in this game, it was actually Gukesh with the black pieces. But Magnus defended well. And at some point, we end up with very fancy trading. Look at this. The knight is attacking both the rook and the bishop. Looks like big, big trouble for white. But Magnus sacrifices his knight to get the attack on the king and bishop, forcing the rook back, which in turn means the rook no longer protects the knight. And yeah, stuff was traded and a draw was agreed. I'm very impressed by Gukesh in these first two games, even though he only came away with half a point. I feel like he was playing some very good chess. I think Fabi played amazingly in game one against Hikaru. And frankly, I think Hikaru played very, very well against Fabi in game two. So for the time format, 10 minutes and 5 seconds per move, my analysis so far is that they're playing extraordinarily well. And then we'll see if they manage to keep that as the day progresses.
A promising start indeed. We're about to see plenty more from Gukesh since he is Hikaru's next opponent. Games will continue, I think, roughly 10 minutes from now. So we are going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere as the action returns very quickly and Hikaru takes on the reigning world champion. Welcome back, everyone, to Clutch Chess, the Champions Showdown. We can see Gukesh is at the board already, where Hikaru will arrive any moment from now. If you missed the first couple of games, Hikaru had a very exciting match against Fabiano Caruana, losing the first game with black, but then striking back in the second with white hammer. And he's now playing the man who is at the bottom of the standings after losing a game to Magnus. And Hikaru, well, he has just won a game against Gukesh, which was much talked about at the USA versus India showdown. I don't think any kings will be thrown today. What do you expect from this matchup?
No King's Throne, but I think it might be decided in the time scramble. Gukesh played two very good games against Carlsen in the previous matchup, but he succumbed to being low on time and not finding the right solutions in those circumstances. So Gukesh is on one loss, but that loss could have easily been a win if he had a bit more time to navigate the counterattack Carlsen launched in a inferior position. So I think for Hikaru, he played a very, very good game against Fabi to win it just now. Just continue in that same fashion, be quick, aggressive, and more of the same as we saw earlier.
I doubt we'll be seeing a King's Indian from Gukesh. In fact, he just, well, against Magnus, he didn't. Am I crazy? That was no Nims, or was it?
Well, Magnus played the Catalan, so the difference
Oh, he
compared
didn't.
to the Magnus games is that Hikaru has chosen to move his knight on the left side out early on, getting into the Nimso Indian, a very very popular opening at well all levels, but also the very very top. And this opening that has been played so far, I find interesting because Matthias Blibaum played this against Hikaru at the World Team Rapid and Blitz Championship, that thing. Which Blibaum did this with the white pieces. And frankly, he was getting quite decent positions against Hikaru. And I think what's happening right now is that Hikaru is slightly inspired by Blibaum, who, by the way, has qualified very surprisingly to the candidates tournament since he got the second place in Uzbekistan at the Grand Swiss. And I was going to say that Hikaru, has some ideas based on those Blibaum games he played. But the fact that Hikaru thought for 40 seconds doesn't really inspire confidence that this was intentional necessarily.
He clearly was trying to remember something.
Or maybe he was deciding whether he wanted to use his best prep on this. I will say that the prizes in the tournament are incredible. And you are rewarded handsomely for winning games by getting extra prizes. So in terms of maximizing becoming world champion, maybe you want to save some prep for the long classical games. But in terms of winning a very rich prize fund here, you might as well just play your best stuff. That being said, because everyone is playing against each other 6 times, you may want to wait until the end of the tournament to use your best openings.
It's a very interesting point. I hadn't considered the candidates aspect of the prep, because I think there is a good chance that Hikaru, again, I don't know, but I think there is a good chance that he has started looking at some stuff ahead of what might be his final push to become a classical world champion. But if you were not here at the start, with every day, a win in this tournament becomes more valuable. So a lot of things to debate here. As Hammer, we have some action in the center where some trades are happening.
Yeah, trades are happening, but also pawn pushes forward. Um, Hikaru still has his king in the center, which is not optimal, but I'm not too concerned either. Ooh, computer really hated that. I don't understand why the computer doesn't like that. This seems very normal. If anything, I thought it was a pretty safe move by Hikaru because he chose to allow his bishop to be captured instead of moving the bishop back. This I understand would have been, not entirely safe, considering how Gukesh is pushing forward with the white king nowhere close to castling. Getting the bishop out, I thought was sensible in comparison. I don't quite understand why the computer is so happy for black. Okay, apparently, Gukesh is supposed to continue pushing forward. And the benefit of this is that the white knight is forced away from the g5 square so that the queen can come there and attack. Then you have to consider the counter here because this looks, somewhat intimidating. And apparently, this is very good for black after takes here.
This is too deep for me, Hammer. So if I recapture,
You cannot block with a queen because then the rook is
um,
unprotected. And if the king moves, then it's actually checkmate.
wow.
I
Wow,
don't know. That was
big word.
difficult to find,
That
and
was hard.
Gukesh, yeah, he doesn't find it. But
Yeah, Altor, I
still
think it would.
annoying for Hikaru dealing with this bishop pointing down on his queen.
I mean, you very humbly admitted that you are a big specialist of the Nimzo yourself, having published a course on that opening. I guess if you were black here, you'd be very happy with the outcome of your Nimzo?
Not really.
No?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't have an idea what was going on, right? And to me, this looks better for white.
But what would, why?
Because I see the potential for long-term damage to the pawn structure with the rook pointed against this pawn. These two pawns are not next to one another. They're split and cannot protect one another. And yeah, and the queen now joining in on that pressure. Um, but this is kind of my weakness in chess, Fiona. I can't believe you're forcing me to speak of my own shortcomings. But
We never
I,
knew you had any shortcomings, Hammer.
I
Don't ruin the myth.
often I often misevaluate the short-term dynamic consequences of a position. So in this kind of situation, I would be like Hikaru is right now. I would be optimistic on white's behalf because the black pawns are not working well together. But then I'm underestimating the long-term damage to my king's positioning and figuring out where this king can reside safely for the long term. And that's why the computer right now massively favors Gukesh because the white king actually is in some long term trouble.
It's interesting though, because yeah, the king might never find a safe spot, but I would also feel that if black takes on f3, we get to open the g file, and I'm looking at, rook landing on g1, the bishop looking down towards g7. Sure, black can take that bishop at some point, but then we increase the pressure on c6. So I'm also not sure why this is supposed to be so bad for us.
Yeah. Which is also the reason why Hikaru went into this, right?
Mm.
He went into it because he felt like this seems like a good situation.
The bishop on g4 is under attack right now, though, so let's not forget that. The queen is not just pointing towards c6, so Gukesh needs to do something. It's either gonna be take on f3, or I guess e4 again, but e4, I don't know how I feel about e4 and opening up the white bishop from c3.
Yeah, I think that's a very good analysis. You don't really wanna make life better for that white bishop. It's not only about the bishop now pointing against the black king, it's also that the bishop could potentially just go one step forward in the future and have a very nice anchored central placement. I say anchored because it would be protected by the pawn for the long term. That being said, it is the move Gukesh has gone with.
And
Hikaru
Hikaru,
pretty quickly tries to aim at this pawn. And to me, the only sense of pushing the pawn forward is trying to get your queen out here somehow. Maybe rook e.
if, oh goodness, no, if rook e6, I was wondering, can I take on e4? And then I was like, no, I'm getting mated on d1. Let's not do that.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Yeah.
But maybe you can just go with the queen back. The thing is that right now, this knight is only protected by the king. So if Hikaru could castle here, he would have a big advantage. But he cannot castle because the knight needs protection. So Hikaru needs 2 moves in order to get his king to safety. And then the question is, what can Gukesh accomplish within those 2 moves? Rook to b8 attacks the white pawn, but that's fine. We wanted to get the queen back anyway to protect the knight.
Yeah, I
And
was gonna
now
say queen.
Hikaru's 1 move away from castling.
And it's hard to see how black would stop castling from happening. Let's see, Hikaru made a move. I suspect it will be queen c2. And yeah, now if you're black, I don't think you can stop white from castling. So what
But
do you
in
do?
that case, I think white is just much better.
Especially with c6 still being such a weakness and the knight having some nice potential outposts on c5, on d4. I mean, just, yeah, where it is right now, it's great as well, looking at e4. I don't understand how black is fine here. Is it to do with queen g5 and just some crazy attacking ideas?
Well, basically, both the top moves suggested by the engine has to do with just, going crazy and sacrificing pawns before Hikaru manages to consolidate. But sacrificing pawns in a 10-minute game as a human, it's when you sacrifice your pawns, you want to be convinced that you're getting something tangible for it. And here, the suggestions, I don't know, it doesn't feel like it's that good to just give away your stuff, essentially.
I like your thinking, Hammer. Queen d5 was not one of the 2 moves that were the top engine suggestions. They were rook b5, which looked very mysterious to me, and queen g5, which made more sense in my opinion.
Okay, so I think
First,
he's
yeah.
just intending to go with the bishop in and get his bishop really annoying inside white's half, protected by a pawn.
That makes an awful lot of sense. The question
So
is,
can Hikaru prevent this bishop from getting in here? Like he could play pawn to h3, force the bishop back, but then the bishop would still remain ready to go into the e2 square once we castle. And I mean, surely you're not going to do this, right?
I'm crazy, but I'm not that crazy,
Yeah,
Hammer.
because you need to have your king over on this side, and you don't want to weaken. Okay, so h3 has been played.
Oh, but wait, bishop h5 and rook c5? What's that?
Ah, rook c5, attacking the queen. If the queen moves, the bishop is lost. But there's a counter with rook takes pawn, exploiting the fact that the queen needs to protect the rook.
And if we take the queen, and then we'll fall to rook c1 in the end, picking up the rook in the corner. That's very nice.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Gukesh is down by more than 2 minutes. I said it at the start of the game, Fiona. His time usage is gonna be the end of him in this format.
Yeah, 2 minutes. I mean, almost 2.5 minutes with this time control is a huge time deficit. The bishop drops all the way back to c8, and surely now is the time to castle.
He's
Ah, but
making the argument that if you castle now, then
he
I
is.
still get the bishop into the d3 square. So you can't really stop him from
Yeah.
getting that placement for the bishop.
Okay, but if we can't stop him, let's just castle anyway, no?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. And now I'm curious where the rook is gonna go. My instinct was to put the rook to c1, but
But we need that
that's
square for the
where,
queen
yeah.
because we need the queen to still protect this pawn.
And okay, here comes the attack. Well, both an attack and a defense, defending the pawn on c6, but that rook will be looking to swing over, probably to g6, and bring the pieces into the attack.
I'm thinking rook c5 is a pretty no-brainer.
Mhm.
And then when the queen goes back, maybe even rook g5. What do you think about this move? Because then the rook would actually help defensively against for the white king.
And if I play h6, where do you go to?
Well, my intention was to kind of be defensive here. But then maybe I've left these queenside pawns a bit. Okay. Ooh, knight f1. I like this move much, much better than what I suggested. So Hikaru is basically just going to put his knight in front of his king, and that's going to be the shelter for the king, the shield.
The wooden shield or
Well,
the
not the wooden shield. It's not a bishop, but
hammer?
whatever type of shield this is.
The metal shield. You shall not pass. If you're black, are you ever tempted to take the knight on f1?
I'm very tempted. Because otherwise, that knight is going to, protect the white king. But an argument can be made that if the
h5?
knight continues forward, you
No.
can push it with the pawn.
Why don't I just start with h5? Just try and scare you
Yeah,
out of playing knight g3.
very likely the move Gukesh is going to play. But Gukesh needs to speed up.
Yeah.
He's not playing quickly enough this game.
Hikaru has got to, yeah, I mean, even just looking at him on camera, he is looking very relaxed right now. Um, and yeah, time Gukesh about to be under 2 minutes. What is he thinking about? Is he thinking of doing something completely different, like Queen A2 I see being suggested by the computer, just trying to put pressure on
Yeah,
the
well, I
queen
mean,
side
Queen
pawn?
A2 would be good if you could get the white pawn, but the pawn just escapes.
Yeah, and it's not clear what the queen does on A2.
Ooh, but maybe. Okay, so apparently there are some thingies going on here. Oh my god, it looked as though the white queen but was trapped, but then you sacrifice the queen and you get the checkmate.
Wow.
That was incredible. Gukesh, oh, did Gukesh see that? He actually prevents the checkmate.
But why so timid? Why h6, not h5?
Yeah,
Okay,
no, very good
anyways.
question. Yeah, he could h5 did the same trick.
Anyway, I think Hikaru will have been happy now. Rook b5 played by Gukesh makes a lot of sense too, kind of preventing the white rook from coming to c5. And I guess his ideas of playing rook g6, queen g5 are still very much alive.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because in the grand scheme of things, okay, even if he lost the tempo and plays h5 anyway, I mean, honestly, I feel
Yeah, but
quite
Hikaru's gonna have time to
comfortable.
go rook d1, and then once this queen moves, you take on c6, and then black's position kind of collapses.
What happens if I go h5 now?
So you go rook d1. And now there
Not
are some
sure.
tricks that if you continue pushing forward, I was going to take this
Ah.
pawn. and I would be reasonably happy winning a pawn. But
If you
apparently, I'm
don't
getting
get mated.
checkmated.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I don't know. I like what Hikaru is doing, protecting his king, and Gukesh is getting so low on time now. But a5 is a good move. So Gukesh says, I need to get rid of the pawns on the queen side. That's my way of defending this to a draw. So this
Family
is a
in
good
chat is
move, and I would say just take that. Ooh, can we take it, actually? Oh, yeah, we can take it and then sacrifice the queen. And then win on time. He does get.
I thought you liked the queen against the rooks. No?
Yeah. And here it's not even the rooks, it's a rook and a
Oh,
knight for a queen.
yeah. Yeah, I think
Actually, maybe Hikaru cannot take this because then he's going to have to give up his queen. And look at this, Fiona. If here, rook here, and now if rook takes. Oh yeah, no, it's checked. Never mind. I was just thinking that maybe this was why he made the escape for the king because it was kind of looking like the variation we saw
well,
earlier.
I think
Oh, Hikaru sacrifices the queen.
and interestingly enough, rook b1 is not even the top computer choice. I mean, the top choice I cannot understand. c5, what is c5? Like, there is rook b1, there is a pawn hanging on a5. What is c5 about? You just want to play c4 and...
Well, I think basically you can go rook b1 later on, but with a pawn in a better position, maybe. Wow, he found it.
Wow. Okay, c5 is an impressive find.
I mean, it's so impressive because your alternative was winning the queen, right?
Yeah.
So having the
Thank
discipline of just saying, no, I don't want your queen. It's more important for me to push this pawn forward is incredible.
Thank you so much, Foxility. And queen d2 is given a question mark.
Yeah,
I mean,
but Gukesh is down to 30 seconds. Surely this is going to work out for Hikaru somehow.
is knight e4 some kind of threat?
This is so far very similar to the amazing game Gukesh played against Magnus, game one, where Gukesh was completely outplaying Magnus and then lost in the time scramble because there was a counterattack. He had.
Yeah, but it feels like here Gukesh is a little bit more in control because that game, yeah, it was very tricky, but his king was super open. While here his king is safe and he now has a very clear plan of just taking that pawn on a5, putting pressure. Suddenly it's Hikaru's pawns on the queen side, which are very weak, and I'm not sure where Hikaru's counterplay is coming from.
You know the situation is bad when even
Yeah.
Fiona is pessimistic.
I just don't see any. I mean, I want to get my pieces into the game to get some counterplay, but suddenly that formation with the pawns on c4, e4, and the bishop on d3. I mean, such a tough nut to crack.
Yeah, you make a pretty good argument. And that's why this pawn push was so good, right? Because
Yeah.
it really solidified the bishop. And you're essentially saying that I can take this pawn back at any point. But I only had one opportunity to push the pawn forward.
And clocks are starting to even out a little bit with Hikaru suddenly under 2 minutes. The problem is, yeah, Gukesh got very low on time in this game, but he played well. I think in a sense he almost used his time wisely, and now he has a position which is quite easy to play. Sure, he doesn't have much time on the clock, but he has a very clear plan.
I just feel like Hikaru for sure is going to get himself out of this. But I will admit, I don't really see how. Ooh, computer wanted to sacrifice the rook. Hikaru opts for a defensive strategy, just keeping the pawn defended that had the pressure against it. I've been very intrigued by the computer wanting to go pawn g4 on multiple occasions. Basically,
I don't
just
think that's
staking a
gonna
claim
happen.
around the knight. Now, Gukesh could have just made a draw there by capturing the knight. So Gukesh is trying to win the game. Hikaru was kind of inviting, do you want to just trade the knight for the bishop and make a draw? And Gukesh said, no, sir. I'm going to play on with 15 seconds on the clock. He might be punished for that decision.
I mean, he can still make a draw at any point by putting pressure on c5. I mean, here again, he could have gone queen c5 and repeated if he wanted. It makes sense that he's playing on. Let's remember they get a 5-second increment. He has a clear target, the pawn on a3. He is in charge of the b file. And the problem for Hikaru at the moment is doomed to defending passively this position.
Queen to b2 is the idea from Gukesh. He wants to trade queens. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe I was wrong. Hikaru doing the back and forth. But at least that's forcing Gukesh to figure out a plan of action.
Have you seen a plan yet for Gukesh?
Not really.
I mean, can Gukesh still go for queenside? You know, the old switch and bait, bring a rook to g6 and...
No.
No.
No, because this bishop is completely out of play if you try to attack over here, right?
But then
This
how do you
bishop
break...
can only influence over here.
But then
Oh,
how do you...
Hikaru is starting the counterattack.
10 seconds for Gukesh?
Hikaru is trying to attack in the areas where this bishop cannot help. So, right, this bishop is very good as an attacking piece, but it's now completely unable to. Oh my God, what a move from Gukesh. He allows the rook to be captured, but if the rook is captured, the queen comes in. And if the rook is captured by the rook, it's still bad news because you can't keep both the knight and the rook defended. Incredible move by Gukesh. And I'm starting to change my mind. I think Gukesh might actually see this one home.
Rook b3 was an unbelievable find with 10 seconds on the clock. And Hikaru down on the 20 seconds position is really, really difficult. How do you try and defend? Suddenly the queen is very out of play. Yes, I understand he was trying to create counterplay on the king side, but the queen is now very, very far removed from the action.
Okay, so Hikaru just decides to give up the pawn. We got to stop this pawn from pushing further forward, but if the queen now moves away, the rook will start threatening. So Hikaru allows the pawn to push further forward, and this pawn is just going to keep pushing up the board. If the pawn is captured, then some pins will win the game. And now the rook is also making threats here. The pawn is under attack. It's falling apart on multiple places.
Yeah, rook g5 is coming. This one looks over, sadly.
Hikaru resigns.
Yeah. Tough loss, but what a game. What a game by Gukesh.
Gukesh is playing so well. He was
impressive.
very unfortunate to lose the mini match against Magnus.
Magnus against Fabi is still going. Let's quickly go there to try and catch the end of it.
Ooh, and Magnus is down a pawn.
By the way, we have over 10,000 of you watching, so thank you very much for that. It's going to be an exciting 3 days of chess. Today is only day 1. And Hammer, is this extra pawn enough?
I don't know. It looks pretty good to me, but Magnus has his king infiltrating on the other side. Computer says very clear draw.
With the last move, right?
Yeah, the black king has to stay back to keep the knight defended because the knight needs to defend the pawn. But if the king is just sitting back in defense, it cannot help over here. Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
just going to get traded down.
And
GG's.
a draw agreed. Let's. Did you see on the camera there? I don't know if Magnus was when Fabi held out his hand, and Magnus, I think, was just checking with the arbiter that they can make a draw with 2 knights. I'm not sure
They're not
what was
allowed to
going
make a
on.
draw before move 60. But at the
Oh,
very least, this was move 61. So they can technically agree to a draw, even if the position is not explicitly a draw, because you can create a checkmating situation.
and shall we rewind the game? It looked like Fabi had some very serious pressure there with the black pieces.
It looked like Fabi played the King's Indian again.
Wow. Interesting.
Fabi is coming armed to this tournament with the King's Indian, very risky black opening that Hikaru and Kasparov, these kind of players, are famous for. Fabi, I don't know. I feel like Fabi is more of a traditional kind of player who I thought didn't buy into the King's Indian being a good opening, but here he goes. So computer always hates these positions for black, but it's still very difficult to play from a human perspective. And so basically, black is trying to stop white from expanding on the queen side. And then in the long term, black will try to expand on the opposite side.
By the way, Hammer, we have a couple of people in chat who think that the King's Indian might be a tribute to Danya, who I did not know his opening repertoire, but it wouldn't completely shock me that
That
there's
makes perfect sense to
yeah.
me because this is way more aggressive than Fabiano usually is, and
Mm,
very aggressive was Danya's style.
mm.
So I completely buy that as an explanation. But the funny thing about experimenting with openings is that sometimes you figure out, oh, maybe this is something I should take more seriously.
Mm.
Because Fabi now he's getting a decent position here against Magnus Carlsen, which is not a bad outcome when you're experimenting with some openings you don't usually play. Magnus didn't really manage to make the breakthrough on the queen side with the pawns advancing there as we're used to, although he certainly tried. Oh, actually, with that latest move, we do get the classic King's Indian kind of flavor with white progressing on the queen side, black on the opposite side, and then black is trying to make the argument that I'm attacking on the side that has the kings. So it's probably better for me. And computer says pretty equal. It looks anything but equal. Fabi sacrifices a pawn, but then he gets it back through a trick. If taking the bishop, you take white's bishop. And then somehow this ended up in an endgame instead of a fiery.
What a disappointment.
Yeah. But Magnus kind of messed up with his rook back and forth, and Fabi got a bit of an initiative here.
We're gonna have to speed up a little bit. Well, in fact, we don't have time at all. As
Oh,
game
Fabi
2.
was winning.
Wow, Fabi was winning. I think even when we tuned in, that end game was still looking very good. It wasn't until later. Anyway, Hammer, we have to go back. Fabi missing a big opportunity here to take the tournament lead. But he'll get a second shot. For now, we are looking at Hikaru's second game.
And Hikaru's using the King's Indian.
Wow.
But he wants to strike back. He is not happy losing with the white pieces, nor
No.
should he be. And now he's going very aggressive with the black pieces to try and equalize the mini match on day one.
So, okay. This is something different though, right? Than what we've seen in the
Well,
Kings.
Fabi also moved his bishop up really early. So maybe this is some kind of modern take on the King's Indian, where you give away your light squared bishop, which I thought was one of your most important pieces, but you do it so that you can have an early pressure into the center of the board. And Hikaru now is going to try to provoke white into pushing their pawn forward, because then this pawn will be blocking the bishop's diagonal.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't push the pawn forward, then black gets a nicely placed knight in the center of the board. So
We see Bensbro in the chat seems to have a lot of knowledge on. He said that actually this bishop g4 is a line that Dania kind of pioneered with a famous game against Wojciech, and apparently Fabi mentioned that he was studying it and that he was studying Dania's game. So I think, well, that to me seems almost like a confirmation of what's going on there with the opening choices. And now, Hammer, so what's the plan? Black wants to play f5, get things rolling on the king side?
definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And then white wants to push the pawns on the queen side. I would expect Gukesh to go pawn to e4 now, because he needs to do something against black just steamrolling him. So pawn to e4, I would be surprised if he didn't do that. And the idea would be that now if f5 you can take, and black has to open up in front of their own king, which I thought was a bad thing. Computer says it's fine. E4 was indeed played, f5 instantly from Hikaru, and Gukesh chooses not to make the trade. And the idea is that normally when white doesn't trade these pawns, it's usually very good for black, because black just continues pushing forward. But because Hikaru has given up this bishop that controlled some important light squares, he's he can't really continue in the traditional sense, in the traditional way, because now the white bishop would just control everything, making sure that the black attack isn't going anywhere.
By the way, I misread or misunderstood in the chat. So it's Fabi himself who pioneered this bishop g4 idea. Which is I mean, when did Fabi start playing the King's Indian? When did that happen? When was that famous game against Wojciech? I'm not sure. Amber, if you had to choose a color here, which would you rather play?
Well, I mean, I would only get into this position with white pieces, because I don't play the King's Indian as black.
And I did the interview after the game. The more you know. Oh dear
No,
me.
I guess I think white is a bit better with the bishop pair. I mean, you know me, I'm not super fond of just giving up a bishop just like that, but
But
Hikaru did it.
If Fabi came up with the idea, there has to be some sense to g4 given.
No, but they're talking about Fabi's game against Magnus, right? In the previous round, not this one.
No, I think they are saying that this whole bishop g4 that we saw in this game, if I understand correctly, that was pioneered by Fabi.
No, the bishop g4 Fabi played against Magnus in the previous game, is how I understood it.
Oh, okay. You probably won this round. I'll
Well,
give you the point. Bensbro says, yeah, I think that's a yeah for you. Okay.
it's very
G4.
difficult to know
I
when
know.
you only write yeah. Not sure which one of the commentators speaking you're yaying.
Why is
Um,
g4 a mistake?
yeah, no, I'm surprised by this. So Hikaru went f4, which I said was tradition for the King's Indian if it's not captured. But then instead of getting the bishop out here and kind of just controlling this area, Gukesh decided to try and shut down everything by playing g4 instead. But I don't know. I think this might be very clever. I kind of like it. Let's see what happens. Yeah, and Hikaru kind of panics. So Gukesh wanted to go pawn to g5 and just be here and blockade, but he wanted to make the blockade in a way where he was also restricting the movement of black's pieces, in particular, this knight's ability to get into the game. So he wanted to make a blockade with pawn to g5. Hikaru decides to prevent that by playing g5 himself, but now after h5, which Gukesh played, Gukesh gets what he really wanted, which was stopping the black attack on the king side and focusing all the play on the opposite side of the board.
So, Hammer, now that the pawn chain has basically been almost entirely locked up, there's still some wiggle room for some things to happen on the queen side. We're not talking about an attacking game anymore. We're talking about a lot of maneuvering upcoming. And what does each side want to achieve in that maneuvering phase?
So White obviously wants to push. White needs to open up somewhere in order to win the game.
Mm-hmm.
So White is trying to open up on the queen side, and opening up essentially means trade some pawns. And then both players are trying to fix their bishops. So this black bishop Hikaru has is being blocked by its own pawns. And so Hikaru is going to want to try and get that bishop over on the other side. But likewise, Gukesh is going to try to get his bishop over.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very interesting position, but I really like the bishops here.
Is b4 immediately no good here?
I don't know. Okay, now b4 is not good because the pawn
Mm-hmm.
is under attack. b3? It's a very strange move by Gukesh. He wants to push the pawn further. You might as well just move the queen to defend the pawn, no? So it seems to me Hikaru is just pointing everything against the c4 pawn, saying that you're going to have a hard time pushing forward with the b pawn because anytime you do that, I'm going to be here and I'm going to be ready to just counterattack
Mm-hmm.
immediately.
So Hikaru is basically saying he's just gonna defend passively, right?
Yeah.
And saying to Gukesh, what are you gonna do?
But Gukesh is saying, I have plenty of ways
Mm-hmm.
to reinforce the protection of this pawn. And then at some point, I will be able to push this pawn up. Computer is starting to like Hikaru's position more, which I don't understand why. And right now, the top choice is pawn to a4, which I can already guarantee is not going to happen. Because then Hikaru goes a5 and we shake hands.
But yeah, I don't understand how the computer gives white such a big advantage here when there is not a single pawn break left.
Well, actually, the computer thinks white is going to be able to win this pawn.
Ah, that would be a problem. Yeah, we can't move the knight from
Actually, white
d6.
is winning this pawn.
Yeah. Yeah, okay,
Okay,
so we need to
but
be a bit more
I mean,
careful.
no human ever will play a4.
A hammer with the jinx.
Well, it's obviously it would be crazy allowing that sort of blockading idea, right?
Okay, so queen e1, I guess, freeing up the path for the bishop to
No,
probably get
actually, he
back.
might go a4 next. Because now he's getting ready to prevent
And Hikaru is
a5.
also getting ready to. But still, that knight from b6.
Yeah, no, it's there's nowhere you can move the knight to
Mm,
open the protection from the bishop. Even if you could give up one of your rooks, you wouldn't care, right?
yeah.
But the thing is, you can't even sacrifice an exchange to get the knight away and protect the pawn. This is so weird.
5 minutes for Gukesh, but as we saw in the first game, you shouldn't get too excited when he dropped. I mean, it was honestly very impressive how from a position with little time on the clock, how he didn't lose his cool and just, I mean, the conversion phase was flawless, basically.
Yeah, Gukesh has played very, very well.
Is he gonna play a4 though? No, he isn't. The bishop drops back, so once again overprotecting c4. Does that mean that b4, the b4 break is not out of the question yet either?
No, no, no. B4 makes way more sense than
Yeah.
A4 because A4 kind of just invites a blockade. But you need to move this knight, right? First.
Mhm.
Oh, he just blockades everything.
Which makes sense. That's just sooner or later you probably had to play f3 anyway.
And now he uses his queen to reinforce.
And here comes a5. So if the queen goes back to e1, now white
Yeah,
is
but
not in time.
yeah, because
The
now we're
d7
not
is
concerned
cleared up.
about this
Yeah,
pawn being a problem anymore, right?
yeah.
Because we got sorted out some of the placements of the other pieces. So Hikaru is essentially saying that when you play pawn to b4, I'm going to be ready for it. The position will open up, but it will create more chances for white, but also create more chances for black. Yeah, I think Hikaru is not going to win this game, but he's not going to lose it either.
Honestly, I
There's
think from how the game has gone, like a draw, I think he'll be quite happy with. I mean, ever since that g5 push, I don't think
yeah.
that he was really playing for a win anymore. Of course, if Gukesh gives us an opportunity, but if you're white here, are you still trying to play b4, or do you think, okay, this
I
is
think b4 is your only chance. It's just
yeah.
that Hikaru is so perfectly set up to deal with it. So if b4 happens now, number one, it opens up for the black rook along the edge of the board, and it can start pointing in against the bishops and against the king. And then number two, Hikaru is going to take on b4, which frees up this c5 square, allowing a black piece to slot in there very nicely, where it cannot be chased away by pawns.
Do
And
you think
then
Gukesh might just repeat moves?
yeah, there's even some kind of
Yeah,
weird tricks against the king.
that's nice.
Yeah, I think Gukesh is gonna have to go back and forth here pretty soon because he's getting low on time, right?
Yeah.
I don't see the value for him playing this on for 100 moves,
Mm.
although he could if he wanted to.
Yeah, but I mean, if he wants to play, b4 is literally the only way, and the more time you're going to burn before making the break, the trickier all the resulting. I mean, it feels like from a practical point of view, just making a draw would be the reasonable thing to do for Gukesh.
I agree.
There is no harm, of course, in thinking for another minute or something. See if you can
Two
come up
minutes
with.
even.
2 minutes
It's
even.
not like Hikaru is going to do anything
Yeah.
because Hikaru doesn't have the light squared control to initiate the fight here. He needs he needs white to push forward because that opens up a lot of diagonals and squares for his pieces to use. But right now, this bishop, for instance, is being blocked by his own pawns in so many different directions. The bishop cannot do anything until white pushes forward.
Hmm.
So the question then would be like, is there any way Hikaru can create optimism in in Gukesh's mind? And now Hikaru is just removing the last drop of optimism there could be, right?
Yeah.
And they're just gonna go back and forth. Honestly, good defensive work from Hikaru, but when he played the King's Indian, uh, which is such an aggressive opening, it's very clear that a draw wasn't really what he had in mind.
And we see that the players are made to show the move that would repeat the position 3 times before they are allowed to shake hands. Not the match result Hikaru wanted, but remember, from here on out, tomorrow points will be worth even more. So even with a suboptimal first day, there will be plenty of time to strike back in this tournament. Magnus Carlsen, meanwhile, he is the tournament leader. And he is looking good against Fabi. What is going on here?
I mean, I didn't realize he was looking good until you just said it, Fiona. I thought White was looking amazing, if I'm honest.
I mean, I
But
just looked at the eval bar, and
yeah, I
but
should
then
I should have started there, me too. But I just saw that he had pushed the pawn in front of his king all the way up. Fabi is about to get a knight into the f5 square, where it will be amazingly well placed, coordinating something against the black king. Um, and then there's the knight on b6, which cannot be chased away by pawns. But I'm starting to think maybe this knight on b6 is the issue for Fabi rather than a benefit, because this knight is not affecting play whatsoever. Yeah, it's inside black's half, but it's pointing towards a ton of squares where nothing is happening. So this knight really needs to get rerouted into the action, because now the action is with this rook in the center and with this tension between the pawns close to the white king.
Magnus's last move, which looks completely natural to me, rook e8, just doubling on the d file, defending the rook on t2, is given a question mark, which probably means there was something better, but I'm curious, what was that something better?
To me, it looks as though Magnus's position is really scary here.
Mm.
The knight comes in, the knight is super well placed, attacking a black pawn. If king tries to protect the pawn, I think there's knight a8, and computer actually confirms my suspicion. The idea is that the black queen is unable to keep the defense of the f7 pawn, because if the knight is captured, you leave your rook in the center undefended. And if the queen moves away, then the queen is deflected away from defense by trading the rooks. So a
Knight
big
a8
trap.
was a beautiful find, Hammer.
And I found it
Really
without the
nice.
engine.
I know,
Fiona
I
will
know. I'm doubly impressed, triply
can
impressed.
confirm. Um, so yeah, no, I'm still liking Fabi's position here.
Yeah, it feels very dangerous. Times are evening out now as well as Magnus ticks under 2.5 uh 2.5 minutes. And I mean, how do you deal with the attack on h6?
I don't really understand. I guess maybe you should take this pawn, but then I'm scared about allowing the rook in as well. Okay, Magnus makes the trade, and then he goes king h7. So now my knight to a8 doesn't work, because now, well, now you can just take it because there's no rook hanging in the middle. So what you do then? I'm looking at this pawn and I'm like, if I can take that, it's checkmate. So anything to get the black queen out of position.
Not easy though. 1 minute for Fabi.
I'm not seeing it. Okay, apparently pawn to h4 is clearly the best move.
How?
Well, I guess it prevents pawn takes pawn, right?
That is fair. That is.
But it's not an easy move to find. Okay, never mind.
Wow, Fabi. Fabi on a roll.
Fabi's been playing amazingly,
Yeah.
right? I mean, Fabi, the first game against Hikaru was exquisite. And then Hikaru beat him in game 2, but like it was an interesting combative fight. I think Hikaru just played very, very well that game. And then in game 1 between these two, Fabi was beating Magnus with black in the King's Indian.
Yeah.
And now maybe he's winning some Italian, I guess this is based on the pawn structure.
Yeah, maybe after the game concludes, we can quickly go back and see how we
Oh
got
no,
to.
it's another Philidor, of course.
Ah, of course. It's interesting how all the players seem to have prepared something quite specific for this tournament from what we've seen so far. Hammer, Magnus is in the tank. Both players about to be under a minute. I mean, honestly, I don't know what moves to make with either color. I'm not sure if I'm black what I even want to do here.
I guess with white, you want to try and get this knight in a
Down.
better position. Okay, question mark, but he literally just did what I said he should do.
Well, that's the problem, Hammer. That's exactly the problem. Now, knight c4, again, very hard to understand why
Oh, he's
that's
even threatening to take. Oh, no, he's not threatening to take.
Why not?
Oh, because then knight g6. No.
Why is he not
Okay,
threatening to take?
the problem is I can't find a neutral move. Okay, so if pawn forward here, if then knight takes, you cannot take back because then the queen comes in for the checkmate against the king. But if the knight moves back, you don't get the queen involved, and there's a counter pin on the white king.
The pin is a problem. Oh.
Double question mark.
Oh. I mean, okay, the move.
Okay, so Magnus sacrifices a pawn. He then attacks the rook. If the rook moves away, it's checkmate. With the knight coming in, forcing the king up, forcing the king further up. And I mean, somehow this king is getting, oh my God, it wasn't even that obvious.
No.
But Fabi decides, oh no, Fabi actually gets to take out the rook. Okay, so no more checkmate. It's equal on material, but the knight is trapped.
And he misses
No,
it.
the knight was not trapped because that knight would have gotten away.
So where was the...
Oh, but here's that. Oh, Fabi was so focused on his ability to attack the king on the king's diagonal, but rather he should have seen the double attack against the knight and against the pawn on the side. That would have indeed won the knight and won the game. So Fabi, for the second game in a row against Magnus, gets a winning opportunity, lets it go, gets another winning opportunity, lets it go again. And somehow Magnus managed to get out of it. Fabi could have gone knight to d6 and the knight would have been pinned and attacked. That was a completely obvious move.
Yeah.
That's actually a
Hey,
huge
Magnus, it
mistake by
does
Fabi.
strange things to people, and now Magnus is back in the game, and it looks like he's going to save another one. Although it's still not over.
Yeah, but this could go either way, right? Because
Yeah,
Fabi is looking very
yeah,
shaky now,
yeah.
being low on
With the
time.
knight coming to f4, I mean, I wouldn't want to be white suddenly. Oh, but yeah. No.
Magnus has not played well today, in my opinion. He was also in trouble against Gukesh, but kind of got fortunate winning that match overall. Now he's been losing in 2 games against Fabi, but
Look at
might
that
win the
nice
match.
cube of knights. What? I had too many knights for me, Hammer.
Yeah, the queen is actually forced all the way back. It's the only way she can keep the protection of the knight in the center.
I
Fabi's
feel
trying
like
to get
Fabi's
some
gonna win this
checkmating.
somehow. Like, black is too passive now, surely, no? And those knights. What if I give a check on d8? No, king h7.
Fabi's using all his time, decides to just go back, but this allows Magnus to win a pawn.
Oh my goodness. Is Magnus gonna
Suddenly,
win?
Magnus is up a pawn.
Magnus is just gonna win this, isn't he?
I suspect as much, yeah.
Unbelievable. And now the knights defend each other. Life is good if you're Magnus. Queen a1, threatening mate on h1. But for 3 seconds.
He finds it.
Barely see him move, all right.
Yeah. Fabi finds the only way to get out of it. Ooh, but Magnus decides to go for an end game. In the previous game, it was Fabi with an extra pawn and a knight end game. Now it's Magnus with the extra pawn, but computer's not convinced it's going to be enough to win. More convinced now, though. Engine said Fabi should have brought his king over.
I mean, good luck playing this endgame with seconds on the clock.
Agreed.
Apparently
Okay,
has to take on a6.
yeah, but then computer was saying that somehow Fabi could give up both his pawns over here and still make a draw. I don't understand how that works. Oh, apparently knight f4, and then you get that one and then that one, and then the pawns could not escape because the knight was blocking the escape path. That was a sick way of making a draw. And instead, Magnus is going to win it. So Magnus has been much worse against Gukesh and then losing twice against Fabi.
Yeah.
And somehow in those 3 games, he has 2 wins and a draw.
I mean, if you're Fabi, you're really disgusted after that match. I mean, 2 winning positions
Yeah,
to
but that
score
knight
half.
to d6 was so easy.
Yeah, that was really a
Like
big miss.
the knight cannot move because of the queen pointing at the king.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you increase the pressure on the knight? Even knight d2 was good enough.
Yeah, very
Like
strange
just
oversight.
any move where you increase the pressure on the pinned knight
Yeah.
would have won the game.
Very, very strange mistake by Fabi here.
But yeah, they were low on time.
Mm. But still, I'm with you. I think that one was absolutely huge miss. And here we see a resignation by Fabi as Magnus wins a second match in a row, or second mini match, shall we say. So Magnus is now on 3 out of 4. I think Jaron will show us the updated standings in a second. So Magnus in the lead on 3 out of 4, Gukesh on 50% on 2, and Fabi and Hikaru currently in bottom 2 places on 1.5. Hikaru is playing a certain Magnus Carlsen next, so he has it in his hands to turn the standings around right now. Magnus, as you say, Hammer, he hasn't been playing his best, but he's been, as always, so tricky in those clutch moments.
Yeah, he's ruthless when he gets the opportunity. But the good news for Hikaru is that he's been playing okay. He hasn't played amazingly, but he hasn't played that badly that he deserves to be in the last place. Ironically, the person who deserves to be in the last place is currently in the very clear lead. And Hikaru gets the opportunity to do something about that
Hmm.
when he takes on Magnus next.
Yeah, that's gonna be an exciting match, of course, to close out the first day. 4 games down, 2 games to go. We're gonna go on a quick final break now before we return with El Clasico Hikaru against Magnus. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you very soon. Hello and welcome back to Clutch Jazz, the Champions Showdown. We see Hikaru looking buff there on the camera as he awaits the arrival of Magnus Carlsen. So far, the tournament hasn't gone his way. It's still early doors, Hammer. But how would you sum up the first 2 minute matches against Gukesh and Fabiano?
Well, I think in the first game, Fabi just played an amazing game, taking down Hikaru. Second game, Hikaru played a really good game to take down Fabi. So far, so good. It's really the loss with the white pieces against Gukesh that is creating the suffering
Mm.
so far. Because then with the black pieces, Hikaru was reasonably solid and, as far as we could tell, never really in trouble. Yeah, it's the white loss against Gukesh. He shouldn't have done that, but he has the opportunity to avenge himself against the man himself, the number 1 player on the standings and the rating lists, and
The world.
yeah, many places. And Magnus, interestingly, has had a poor tournament so far.
Mm.
He has a lots of points, but he's been losing both games against Fabi, and he was significantly worse at some point against Gukesh. So I'm I saw a comment in chat which I think is valuable. Um, this is not the time to try and make up lost points because even if he loses today, he can make that up on day 2 and day 3 because of this system where they get double points tomorrow and then an extra point beyond that again the day after tomorrow. So for Hikaru, what he needs is he needs to get a good feeling. He needs to end the day on a high. If that means like defending to a draw with the black pieces without ever being in trouble, or he has the white pieces coming up, maybe he just wants to play it safe and be like, okay, I'll make 2 draws against Magnus, and then we go again tomorrow. As long as he doesn't lose this game, I think he's gonna be ready for what tomorrow brings.
I am completely with you and the chatter as we see a handshake there between the players. There's no need to go all out here. Remember, the points are worth more tomorrow, even more the day after. So no need to do anything crazy. I'm very curious to see the openings. Are we going to continue seeing the King's Indian? Is Magnus going to play the Philidor as black next? That's neither here nor there for now. Knight c3. Here
An
comes a
unusual
surprise.
opening from Magnus. Is he going to play the Jabava London? Yes, he is.
Interesting.
Hikaru very quickly pushes pawn to a6. The idea is to prevent the knight from coming out on an early attack. And then pawn to h6. That's very mysterious. I guess he wants to go bishop f5 and have the opportunity to retreat the bishop. And now Magnus starts doing these little pawn moves on the side as well.
How do you explain that, Hammer? In
Well,
general, when you're a beginner, you're told just develop your pieces, don't make too many unnecessary pawn pushes. And here, I mean, out of the first, what, 8 moves, or we saw one piece we played.
yeah, I'm not sure how to explain Hikaru's move. Magnus's move, I think, is easier because it's generally useful to have control of this b4 square. Normally, you want to prevent the black bishop from going there, but there's also some sense in avoiding the knight being able to use that square. Plus, you actually do have the option of pushing the pawn. So
Mhm.
I think this a3 move from Magnus makes quite a bit of sense. Ooh, and Magnus tries going for early trades in the center. This is essentially a question to Hikaru whether he wants to trade queens. But if Hikaru goes for the queen trade, he's going to allow the white pieces to really. Oh my god, my mouse is not working. I'm actually unable. Oh, there we go. The rook is pointing down through the center. So yeah, Hikaru probably cannot go for the queen trade just now because it just allows white to have such well placed pieces afterwards. And instead, Hikaru decides to keep the tension between the pawns and just castle.
So does Magnus, and now Hikaru taking some ground on the queen side. I guess that bishop is looking to develop to b7. And
To
honestly,
me,
I
the
think
big question is whether Magnus will push his pawn forward in the center.
mhm.
That seems like the very principled thing to do. But the disadvantage of pushing this pawn is that Hikaru might try and strike back into the middle very, very quickly by challenging the white pawn that advanced.
Interesting. I didn't think you were gonna follow this up with f6 for black.
Well, I think if you don't do that, you're going to have long term issues with, well, basically, you're going to get checkmated, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a very fair chance that this kind of thing is just too overpowering for the
Mm.
black king that has been left to fend for itself.
And that king is looking rather lonely. You make a fair point. And
But the good
Magnus
news is
still
that the computer
debating.
feels e5 is
Mm-hmm.
just not good.
And if e5 is just not good, do you think this is just a very even position? I mean, if we see a trade on d5, for example, or if
I don't know. I think it looks better for black.
mm,
Because similarly to the first game of the day, the one where Fabi played such a good game against Hikaru, Hikaru here has two pawns in the middle against White's one.
mm-hmm.
So unless something is happening in the very near future, it feels to me that Black should be a bit better due to the extra central control. And that's why Magnus actually takes up the gauntlet and does decide to push the pawn forward.
So
And
you were saying
this is a
mm-hmm.
very committal decision by Magnus.
You were pointing out the computer does not like this pawn push. Let's try and understand the reasons.
Well, I think the reason is basically that
This
Hikaru
f6.
has time to go pawn f6 ASAP. Like next move, Hikaru will push this pawn. There's nothing Magnus can do about it. And that enables Hikaru to try and get more pieces over to his own king. So Magnus sets up this sacrifice on h6, which we talked about. And in order to keep that sacrifice under control, Hikaru should now just play f6 so that he gets his queen over close to the black king and keeps the king well defended.
And
And
is
that's what
that,
he does.
yeah, That is what he does. But Magnus has to take anyway, I guess.
I guess Hikaru could take with the rook. And the idea taking with the rook would then be that you sacrifice your rook against the white knight when the bishop moves away. This could be very, very interesting for Hikaru.
Yeah, I think that will really tell us something about what spirit he is in. Does he want blood at any cost? Is he willing to take some risk? Or would he rather play it safe? And yeah, I think the next move, if Queen f6, of course, perfectly fine move. Keeping things more safe, but Rook f6, some potential to create some chaos on the board.
He does go with the queen. That was the engine top choice and the safest choice. But the disadvantage of going with the queen is that the queen is now standing in the way, which means you don't have that typical rook for knight sacrifice, which opens up the white king.
Can we still, I mean, is there still potential here for Hikaru to...
Hikaru has 2 pawns in the middle while white has none.
That
so there's a ton of
fair?
potential for both players, really. So Hikaru is trying to take advantage of his extra pawns in the middle, and Magnus is trying to take advantage of the fact that he has open files so that he can exert pressure through those that same area.
If you're white here, yeah, I was just gonna, surely you don't want to drop the bishop away to keep the bishop here at all costs. Is there anything to be said for just taking on d3 and playing with the bishops?
Yeah. I said that just in time, didn't I? Yeah, no, I'm liking Hikaru's position.
And now, okay, I guess queen takes will be played. Just don't see why you would.
Yeah, that's a big call.
I would just not want to weaken my pawns, but
Yeah, but are you really weakening the pawns? Because so if queen takes, this pawn is like a backward pawn, and it's like, is it ever really going to contribute in the game? At best, it maybe can go one step forward and support the d4 square. But if you take with a pawn here, at least there's the potential of you pushing further up, which will block the black pawn structure, which in turn will block the black bishop. What Magnus is hoping for when he takes with a pawn here is essentially that this light squared bishop will struggle being in the game if Magnus can just get his bishop into the center and then push d4,
which
which
you
is
might
what
do.
happened.
Yeah.
There was an option for Hikaru to go bishop d4, which basically was only had one plan to prevent bishop to e5. But I feel like that bishop into the center was worth preventing.
And I'm surprised that Magnus hasn't played bishop e5 yet.
Me too.
So let's see if bishop e5. I mean, where do we even... I'm tempted to go to g6.
That makes sense to me. But then d4. And we have this situation where
Yeah,
there's
and
no
bishop
hope for these
e5
black
played.
pawns to push forward, which means that they will always stand in the way of the light squared bishop. Okay, Hikaru chooses the f5 square, but it doesn't really make that big of a difference, I would say. There's still the issue of white having successfully kind of just set themselves in the path of the central pawns.
Yeah.
And we were kind of hoping that these central pawns could push forward so that it would open up for instance, a diagonal for the light squared bishop against the white king. It
Yeah.
doesn't feel like it's a big issue for Hikaru here, but at the same time, he's definitely not better anymore.
Yeah, this is not the bishop pair we were dreaming of. I mean, can I just start pushing my pawns on the queen side? What if I go a5?
So here the problem is that the rook comes in with a lot of threats at the same time. These threats can be defended against, but only by allowing the trade between the bishops, which is strategically favorable
Mm.
for white, seeing as how you get rid of black's bishop pair and black is saddled with the bad bishop remaining. So yeah, I kind of like this move from Hikaru. I was about to say something because it provokes Magnus to go f4. Then I thought we just go back, and Magnus doesn't have very good light square control. So I'm not seeing how he. So previously, oh wow, never mind.
Holy moly.
Okay, so I was gonna say like I saw some kind of way that white could gradually advance on the light squares using the fact that the bishop is controlling the dark squares, and then the pawn would have to take the slack on the light squares, which is why I like this bishop to g5 move, because then you're forcing white's pawn to a dark square, meaning that he's not going to be able to fight for the light squares in the same way. But Magnus tries to fix that by saying, no, I can push my pawn to the light squares already because you cannot take this due to the attack of the rook down towards the king. I really like this g4 move. Like, I like bishop to g5 from Hikaru, even though it got a question mark. And I also like g4 from Magnus, even though it got a question mark. But the logic behind the moves is very sound. Hikaru was trying to provoke the white pawns to go to the dark squares for lack of a light square control. And Magnus is trying to put his pawns on the light squares to kind of take control of an area of the board where he wasn't doing too well
And
beforehand.
now we suddenly have a big fight on our hands again, where Hikaru, I think, is gonna play on the queen side. I think a5 is gonna happen very soon. And Magnus is going to try and play on the king side. Do you think Magnus has any realistic attacking chances?
I mean, I don't really see how.
Mhm.
I guess maybe f5. There's so many situations where Hikaru just gets a blockade on the light squares, right? So if Hikaru goes a5, if Magnus tries to push, Hikaru can probably just sit on a light square and just stand in the way. Okay, maybe better to make the trade and then sit in the way. But the same principle applies, right? Here, look at all these light squares. Magnus doesn't have control here at all on these.
I mean, the
So
question of what percentage of chat can win this position against Magnus when the position is basically even according to the engine. I would guess the answer is pretty damn close to 0. Okay, time down to 4 minutes for Hikaru.
it's very
Um,
surprising he opts to spend time here though,
yeah.
Fiona. Because it feels like he has such an obvious plan. So he must be concerned about something happening immediately, which must be like pawn to f5. And then like
I mean, it does look a little bit scary.
I don't know. I don't think it looks scary at all. Pawn to f6. This is supposed to scare me. I get a free pawn and I get to control the dark squares. I don't know. This just looks
Yeah, I
very
mean, why
good for
did we?
Hikaru.
I'm not sure about f6. Can we go?
It was the computer top move.
Uh, okay, if you're not scared, that's good enough for me, Hammer. Let's see what happened in the game. A5. I mean, this is very much a three result game. I'm kind of glad for these developments. And Hikaru speeding up now.
It
If we
seems
can,
like Magnus is trying to get the knight over here, and then he's going to work together with the bishop to try and force some, I don't know, something to happen.
so do we play bishop f6 now, or do we still not want to trade those guys?
I was wondering if we can just move the rook and put the bishop back.
You want to go full defense mode, Hammer?
I don't know how crazy that is, but I do I am a little nervous here with white.
Scared at
White,
last.
yeah, no, there are a lot of white pieces pointing
Yeah.
in the black king's general direction.
Yeah, no, let's trade that bishop. I don't feel good about that bishop sitting on
Nah, I don't want
f5.
to trade the bishop. Strategically inadvisable. But
Strategically
if knight here,
unadvisable is
maybe
still
just go
better
g.
than getting mated.
Yeah, but if the knight comes forward, maybe just. Um, is it that big of a disaster if we push
You want to
pawns in
play
front of our king?
g6? Yeah, I'm gonna say yes, it is.
Problem is, we're not making any threats on the other side of the board.
2 minutes. Hikaru needs to watch the clock a little bit.
Oh gosh, he goes
He
for the
goes for
Fiona
my
plan.
move. Let's go. Let's go, Hikaru. I mean, the problem is, Hammer, I'm with you that I wouldn't want to trade the bishop. I just didn't see what anything else to do without getting properly scared, you know?
Yeah. We're not even making any threats though.
Yeah, but we couldn't make any threats. How did you want to make any threats?
So I think the idea behind this is basically that now pawn to f5 has a less sting. But I think Magnus is going to play pawn to f5 anyway.
And now maybe can we keep the bishop and go bishop g5?
What?
I don't know.
Then what was the point of trying to trade the bishops earlier then?
Well, if I now take on f5, because I'd much rather take your knight. I'll just take that. No, I mean, maybe I'm not winning, but I think I'm completely fine here.
Maybe. Okay, Magnus pushes.
G5. Was ist das?
Hikaru's pretty low on time now.
But we could see a queen sack. Well, in fact, we
Uh,
probably.
oh, I didn't even see that. We can just take the pawn, allow the queen to be taken, and then we get a take a rook with a check. That's easy peasy. And Hikaru's doing it.
Lemon squeezy. Let's go. Okay, hammer.
I like taking pawns. I'm completely on board with this. I
What's
think
Magnus?
Magnus just missed that. He thought,
Did
you
he miss
cannot
that the
take
rook is
here
hanging with check?
because I think so. I think he made a little assumption there. He assumed the pawn could not be captured because the white rook would then point against the white queen, the black queen. And the more Magnus is thinking in this position, the more it's confirmed that Magnus just gave away a free pawn there.
And I think the reaction on camera there just fully confirmed it. And the problem is, I mean, if Magnus cannot take on g5, then, well, we did just grab a pawn, and that was a big pawn that could potentially scare us. So not only did we win a pawn, but we also eased the pressure on our king side. This is looking very good, and times are evening out.
Magnus was like 2 full minutes ahead,
Yeah.
just 2 minutes ago.
Someone was
Eh,
saying in chat just before G5 happened, what are the odds of a Magnus blunder? And I was thinking not very low, but G5, I think you can call it a blunder. And what do we need
Yeah,
here,
he
Hammer?
just
Why is
didn't think the pawn could be captured, and Hikaru captured it. And now Magnus went for the strategically favorable trade of bishops, but he's down a whole pawn. Computer says Hikaru can win more pawns by going bishop to b5,
and
which
he
he
finds it.
does.
Wow, bishop b5 was the top move by
And
quite a
now, if the
margin.
rook tries to still protect this pawn, Hikaru will finally be able to use his advantage on the queen side very, very well, as the rook just comes in and destroys everything, which means Magnus is going to have to move his rook away, allowing Hikaru to then freely capture the pawn. I'm going to say maybe with the queen. But in any case, Hikaru right now is going to be disappointed if he doesn't win this. That's how
He's gonna
big
be
his advantage is.
very disappointed. Magnus has survived some tricky and lost positions before today, though, so he's not gonna go down without a fight. But
It
yeah, I mean,
definitely confirms my impression from the first games that Magnus
yeah.
has been the one playing the worst. He's gotten pretty lucky on number of points so far. And
And
Hikaru could capitalize on that here.
he's about to go a second pawn up. How do you take with the queen or the pawn?
I'm not sure. Because if you take with a pawn, then the knight pushes forward, pressure on the queen. The queen can move, but then you sack in front of the king, and you
Mm-hmm.
cannot take this. Actually, you can maybe take this. Because then if the queen gets captured, you get the queen back. But you don't have to capture the queen
Yeah.
immediately. Yeah,
But
this
it feels
seems
like with a minute on the
unnecessarily
clock, you don't
tricky.
want to maybe go into this.
Yeah, no. So my instinct was to take with the queen,
Yeah.
but I
You need
don't
a
actually see what you do after rook takes pawn.
What did Hikaru do? He took with the
Hikaru takes
pawn.
with the pawn.
Wow.
He's a brave man. So now the big question, what happens when the knight sacrifices itself? Hikaru's looking very confident. Magnus was looking at moving the queen. That's actually the computer top choice, but I'm not sure trading queens when you're down 2 pawns is the
That's not
best
what we learn in
strategy.
chess school. 35 seconds for Magnus. Yeah, I think Magnus understands he needs to find a trick here. Because if Hikaru gets 1 or 2 moves to consolidate, there will be nothing left to try for.
He
Great
blocks the
question
pawn
from
from advancing.
Great question from Chess. Does Hammer try to be funny or is he naturally funny?
I have so many people telling me that, oh, yeah, you're so awkwardly funny. You don't even understand how funny you are. And I'm like, I'm trying very hard here. Don't dismiss my effort in all of this. But sometimes I am genuinely awkwardly unintentionally funny as well.
And that's why we love you, Hammer. Bishop g6, looking for bishop e4. It feels like we're seeing the final moments of this game here.
Magnus tries to, I'm not sure what he's trying. Oh, he resigns. He gives up before even Hikaru gets the opportunity to do anything. That's how bad Magnus's position was. And Hikaru,
That's a
nice win.
huge win. Massive win. And is the other game? The other game is still going. Hammer, let's go to Fabi against Gukesh.
Extra knight for Fabi. And yet, computer likes Gukesh's position. Gukesh has pawns trying to become new queens. Why is this good for black? I don't understand. Oh my gosh! Can you not just take that? Ooh, and then pawn up and then not. No, but then
That's
the
really
knight gets
nice. Rook
back. No,
d4.
then the knight gets back. Maybe you just
Oh,
have to take this pawn and hope for a draw. But now knight can just go back, no?
yeah, what am I? Are we missing here?
I don't understand what's going on. Do they
What
go
are
back
we
and forth?
missing?
Do they make a draw? Wait, what?
We'll have to do a rook hangs, but the rook was defended by the pawn on a3.
If back here, trade, trade. Is this really that bad? I think Fabi was afraid of this endgame.
Yeah.
That his knight wasn't really worth anything because it always had to protect against the pawn.
Maybe he's right. Okay, let's stick with the action. We can come back here at the end of it. But now with the
This is so
extra.
obviously bad, right?
Yeah, surely this
Because
is.
when pawns on the opposite side of the board are on the same file, it means that you can never trade them off. So if the white pawn had been one square to the right, or the black pawn had been one square to the right, it would have been very obviously a draw. But because they are on the same file, they can never kind of balance each other out, which I think is why the computer is very optimistic on in Gukesh's favor. And this means Fabi could end up being the clear bottom placed player
After
after
having
day
two
one.
winning positions against Magnus.
That's rough.
Yeah. But Gukesh showing that he might have worked on his rapid game.
Ooh, nice trick from Fabi. The black rook can no longer move without losing a pawn. Gukesh decides it's time to push forward. Maybe Fabi has a chance. I'm assuming he should go pawn to g4, sacrifice a pawn, but create some sort of.
Yeah, just if there is one more game where Hikaru will be white against Magnus. And then tomorrow we do the whole thing again.
But after beating Magnus with the black pieces, I don't know. I feel like Hikaru should just play very safe. Just be very happy that he had a good day against Magnus. And then have a
You mean
good.
not take any risk?
Yeah. He'll have a very good feeling. Oh, wow. What is this? Gukesh allows two pawns to be captured, but the computer confirms that this was brilliant because he forces the white king further down. And the idea is that the white rook cannot capture the other black pawn without allowing a breakthrough with the black king coming in against the white king. Wow, that was very nicely. I don't even think that was calculation. I think he just had some instinct that here the active king is going to decide it. Threatening checkmate. And now I guess you just go for the trade. Trade and then king here. And you
Looks
queen.
good enough. Impressive conversion by Gukesh.
Very, very good.
What a round. What a round.
So Magnus loses and he's still leading?
Magnus is still leading, but he's tied with Gukesh now.
Yeah.
He's tied with Gukesh. On the other hand, I mean, the nearest player behind him before this round was a point behind, so it was tough for Magnus to lose his lead.
Well,
The good news,
but I mean, the only way he could was Gukesh winning and Magnus losing, right? So,
yeah.
or at least to be tied. They're started already.
Oh, because they are not waiting. Hammer, good thing you are so sharp. They're starting, and we get a Rui Lopez. Magnus has had enough of the Philidor.
Magnus going for the Berlin. I guess he wants Hikaru to go for the famous draw, and Hikaru does not disappoint.
Well,
I
that's
think
gonna
I think
be,
Hikaru was just so happy with winning with the black pieces
yeah.
that he was like, I feel so good right now. If I lose with the white pieces, I'm gonna lose this good feeling, and then he just wants to keep that momentum, or rather self-esteem.
Yeah, I think not a bad decision. You kind of called it before the game even started. I understand that, for chess fans, this is always disappointing, especially when Hikaru is playing Magnus. We want to see a game, but we just saw a great game in game one. And, tomorrow a win will be worth 2 points. I am kind of with Hikaru here that, going home on a good feeling is potentially more valuable than trying to squeeze something here with white.
Yeah. I don't think he would have done the same thing if it was tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because I think tomorrow there's going to be double points on the line.
Mm.
And I think that means that the white games would be a bit more valuable, that you kind of have to try.
It will also depend, of course, on the tournament standings, but overall, I'm with you. I doubt we'll see this tomorrow. Well, we're just in time now. We see Gukesh is coming back to the board, so we'll be able to follow his game against Fabiano in full. I think overall both those players have played very well today. Fabiano has gotten unlucky. Well, unlucky is one way of putting it, but unfortunate in his games against Magnus not to get more points from that. But I think Fabi is really looking now to get a result here in this last game, as
But the
he's
black pieces against the Gukesh, who's frankly played really, really well today.
no. Well, Fabi won, and we saw that the first game of the day against Hikaru, and then after that he's scored half out of 3 games. He's now lost 2 in a row, one to Gukesh and one to Magnus previously. So I think if you're Fabi here, the main thing is not lose, basically. Which, of course, is easier said than done. Let's jump into it, Hammer.
And an unusual second move from Gukesh. And Fabi sticks with his King's Indian, which frankly has served him very well so far. It's just that his time scramble play hasn't been up to par. The King's Indian opening in itself has been really, really good for Fabiano.
A lot of questions in the chat about whether Hikaru will join. For now, we don't know. As soon as we have any information, we will share it with you.
So far, this is the same opening that Gukesh played against Hikaru in their game. Then we recall that there was an early trade of the Black Bishop against the White Knight, and Fabiano is choosing a different path.
So c6.
This is
Hammer.
kind of the way Black plays when you want to have a combative game. So basically, based on this move, I'm getting the feeling that Fabi wants to win a game right now.
I like that approach. It's very cutthroat. I mean, because when you try to win, most of the time you incur more risk to lose the game. So let's go, Fabi. I like the approach, and well, we're seeing a familiar pawn structure now.
Yeah, although in Hikaru's game against Gukesh, we had this classic blockade situation with the pawns. It's a little bit different when Fabi now chooses to make the trade, because now the c5 square is open for a black knight potentially in the future. But on the other hand, well, black can try to use the c file with a rook, but so can white. And in general, this area of the board in a King's Indian defense is where white thrives. So opening up on that side is a committal decision by Fabiano, because it means that white can generally try to take over the control that black right now is hoping to have.
A quick series of moves by Fabi. Is that knight aiming to go to c5?
I think for now, it's just opening up for the rook to get involved. Potentially also pawn to b5, an option. I think in general, Gukesh wants to go, he wants to restrict the movement of this knight. So I'm expecting pawn to a3 at some point. Maybe like b5, a3, I would say. b6. Interesting. So now Fabi wants to get the knight to the c5 square, and he's ready to use the pawn as the protector there. These positions are strategically rich. That's what I'm trying to say. This actually is starting to resemble a bit the position Fabi had against Magnus in their game, a game where Fabi was winning, but couldn't find the right moves all the way in. Maybe pawn to b3, I'm gonna say. Trying to reroute this knight towards the c4 square, and also avoiding the trade of knights when the knights are put up against one another. Yeah,
and
I like
after
b3.
b3, knight c5, knight b2. Can black go a4? Maybe? No, a4 isn't.
Well, a4, b4. So we really want to get this placement of the pawn on b4 simply to restrict the black knight. I was more concerned about pawn to b5. But then I was thinking a3 there as well, and then I'll play b4 next move. And if you try to put your pawn there, then I get this square for my knight. So it's like you can't both prevent me from pushing the pawn up to b4, dislodging the black knight, unless you go b4, but then you give me a great square on c4. So I kind of like b3 here.
Gukesh investing a lot of time into this moment here. But
computer likes a4 followed by b3.
Maybe it doesn't make a big difference, right?
It makes quite a bit of difference to prevent the b5 move, right? Because then you get this rerouting of the knight without black ever having control of that square with their pawn. But yeah, Gukesh needs to make a decision now.
I mean, it's been, I don't know how long, but I'd say 2 minutes. We have our eye on the Hikaru interview. We will have that ready for you after this game ends, but I think for now, we are gonna stick with the live action here. But thanks for letting us know. And b3, Hammer.
I'm just gonna say
it didn't take you that long.
Yeah, but then he played queen e2 afterwards, which I don't understand. I thought the whole point of b3 was to make this square available to the knight. Very strange, queen e2. I don't like that at all. And I really like this move from Fabi, trying to exploit the fact that suddenly Gukesh put all his pieces on the same diagonal.
But what was queen e2?
I have no idea. I don't see a single good thing about this queen e2 move. And Fabi then, in addition, kind of highlights the negative things as well as the things it doesn't accomplish.
Yeah, I mean, somehow with just, it's so crazy how one move only, first of all, you're spending a couple of minutes and then you make a move which is very, very far from optimal. And just like that, the tide can turn very, very quickly.
And
Knight.
Jin suddenly saying advantage black. A4 is not available to protect the knight because of the white pawn then being undefended. Fabi kind of deserves getting some points today.
He really does.
Poor guy.
I mean, I'm a big fan of both Gukesh and Fabi, but I'm kind of rooting for Fabi here. I mean, he's played well. It's sometimes chess really, sometimes the scores just don't reflect the way you've played.
Yeah. Okay, good moves by Fabi. Gukesh felt the need to make the trade between the knights because he wanted to avoid losing the pawn. He felt like he needed to go pawn to a4 to reinforce his knight. But in order to do that without losing one of his pawns, he had to make the trade, which is favorable for black because black now has an extra pawn exerting pressure towards the center, in addition to having the option of using the rook pointing down on white's knight and pawn.
One can sense that Gukesh isn't happy with the turn this game has taken by all the time he is investing here. Down under 5 minutes now. Fabi has actually played very well and very quickly in this game, and not easy to to advise anything to Gukesh here.
I'm gonna say rook b1. I think you need to move this rook, and then it's just a question of where are you gonna put it. But I think you need to move the bishop back to further reinforce the knight. It's not really something you want to do, but it might be something you need to do.
TikTok. Gotta make a move, Gukesh.
How is the time difference for Gukesh? I guess he lives in India normally. He
Yeah, but
literally went.
he was playing European Club Cup for the last week.
Ah,
So,
yeah, of
but
course.
still, I mean, it's what, a 6 hour difference? Still none.
8 hours, I think, maybe.
I think it's usually 7, but since we moved clocks, we're now 6 time. And,
Well, I think Cyprus is further to the east now.
but I'm not. I'm
It's
talking
not
about.
Cyprus, it's Rhodos, which is a different island.
Ah, to
Yes.
road. Ah, you're clever, Hammer. I thought the difference to us, but the difference to us is indeed 6 hours, but in Rhodos,
It's probably
it
also
is.
6 hours because it's Greece.
No, it's 1 hour ahead of us.
Okay.
Yeah, so 7 hours for Gukesh, which is 7 hours is a lot.
Yeah. I was just thinking, it feels like his head is just at a standstill right now, which is why I kind of approached the subject.
He also, but he's young though. He should be
Are you
able to
saying
deal with
young
jet
people
lag.
don't get jet lagged?
Less than we do. Anyway, we are
Is that
joined.
true?
Hey, how you
We are
guys doing?
joined. Hey, Hikaru.
How's it going?
Welcome.
Good to be here.
Well, first of all, congrats on the mini match win against Magnus. How are you feeling after the first day?
I mean, it's kind of it's very much a mixed bag. On the one hand, I'm happy with the final. I mean, I should say final game because the fifth game against Magnus was the final game of the day, effectively. So I'm happy with how the day ended. I'm pretty unhappy with how the day began. I mean, I thought both games against Fabiano were incredibly shaky from both of us. Maybe it's just due to being rusty or whatnot, but the start wasn't good, but the end I'm happy with. So all's well that ends well.
Well, you are back nice and early. We can maybe talk. Oh, let's talk about it now. What
Sure.
influenced your decision to make that Berlin draw against Magnus?
I mean, more than anything else, if I'm being honest, it's the format. If the points were evenly scored across all 3 days, I probably would have fought to try and win the game. But with the points counting for more on day 2 and day 3, I just thought, what's the use? What's the point? Like, why try to go for something crazy? In this moment. So it's definitely about the format. Now, make no mistake, I think the format objectively is quite good. But the format is such that on day 1, especially, it didn't feel like it made the most sense. If this were day 2 or day 3 and I'm in the same situation, probably I try to do something different.
That was
Oh,
also the feeling we had. Sorry, go ahead, Hammer.
yeah, I was gonna say. So I'm 1 for 2 because I thought you played a really good game 2, and I thought Fabi played a really good game 1. But
I
I
mean,
also said
maybe
exactly
I'm
what you
maybe
said now.
opportunities in the second game against Fabiano. I mean, to be fair, the first game, yes, it probably felt very one way for Fabiano, but I thought there were a couple moments that he made some mistakes when he could have probably put me away sooner. Um, But it is what it is. It is what it is. And obviously, I haven't looked at the games yet, so what I'm saying is just based on my general reaction from when I was playing the games.
Speaking of the games, and we can come back to yours maybe in a short while, we can pull them up as well. We were just looking here at Gukesh against Fabi. Our feeling is that Fabi has played well today, maybe gotten a bit unlucky. I don't know if you saw any of his games against Magnus.
It's funny you should say because I've been my impression, and maybe it's because I haven't been watching every Fabi game, is I feel like Fabi and I have been the two worst players by a considerable margin. I know I had the win against Magnus in the final game, which really was redeeming. But my general view after the first 2 matches was that we were the two worst players. So maybe I just haven't looked at the games closely, but that was my general view.
Magnus was losing in both games against Fabi.
Oh, actually, to be fair, I didn't see the first game. I only saw the second game, which was very, very choppy. I did not. You're right. I did not see the first game. So when I say that, yeah, that's actually a good point. I didn't see the first game at all. So I take that back.
Yeah, my impression is that Magnus has been the worst by actually some margin, and Gukesh has been the best. But
Yeah, I mean,
all of that is turning around if Gukesh loses with White in this final game, right? It's just a very tough,
yeah,
pretty
I mean,
evenly
I
matched.
actually think that today both Fabi and I were feeling incredibly inspired to play the King's Indian in honor of Daniel Naroditsky. I could be wrong on Fabi's end, but definitely for myself, when I played Gukesh, that was the reasoning behind it. I just thought, why not play something? It's day 1. If it goes wrong, so be it. Um, so I think both of us were trying to play the King's Indian, sort of in the spirit or in the honor of Dania. But yeah, I forget what your question was, of course, but overall it's been a good start. And I think for Magnus, he did do one thing that I've actually never seen him do before, which was once he got the completely lost position and it was pretty much over, he started muttering a lot to himself in your native tongue. So I was kind of a little bit confused by that, honestly, but it's tough. Of course, Magnus' wife just gave birth. I think what, like a month ago or so. I highly doubt he's getting sleep. I'm going to be in that same situation very, very soon. But yeah, it's probably tough for Magnus. Then you add in the jet lag. I mean, he's not. I mean, three of us are not young. One of the players is obviously very young. So it's probably just a combination of all factors.
It's interesting you should mention that because everyone, I mean, has been busy, right? Fabi just obviously finished the US
Mhm.
Championship. Gukesh was playing the European Club Cup. We were just discussing jet lag for Gukesh when you came along. Do you think having played an
Gukesh is like
event
Gukesh is so young. I mean, I'm not saying jet lag isn't a thing, but he's so young that he's going to recover a lot quicker than any of the rest of us.
that was exactly the point I was making when you jumped on the call, and Hammer was trying to fight me on it. But
Yes.
I do think that being young Do you think that Gukesh is okay? It's still early days. It's only day one, but do you think that Gukesh's rapid play has improved?
It's very hard to judge. I think what I would say is he found a couple of very good moves in the game against me specifically. I mean, mind you, I haven't seen the game other games he played to be fair, but especially in the first game against me, he found a couple of very good moves. I mean, he found the C5 move, which I think was really good instead of playing rook to b1 in the late middle game stage. There was like one or two other moves he found. He found rook b3 with like 5 seconds on the clock, which was incredibly impressive as well. So he found some very good moves when he was low on time. I mean, I would say that it's kind of hard to believe that Gukesh can't improve at Rapid or Blitz considering the age he's at. I mean, if he's already peaked, it's kind of like, I mean, okay, but it's really hard to believe that. So it makes sense that he's getting better, and he'll continue to improve in all the formats.
Speaking of Gukesh being low on time, he's going to have to pull something out of the bag here.
This is ugly. This is really ugly. Really hard to play this position. With only a minute on the clock. I mean, as long as Fabi doesn't get too low on time, I think he'll be fine. But my general view also is I felt like for myself, for Magnus and Fabiano, when we got really low on time, we just completely panicked and lost our minds completely. And it's very tough. As you get older, that's one of those things that tends to happen more and more. We've seen it with players like Gary Kasparov, gets great positions seemingly every game, but if he gets low on time, like the brain just it doesn't process the way it once did. So I think, for all of us who are a little bit older, it's almost imperative that we don't get super low on time, because if we do, I think it's gonna be difficult, to put it mildly.
But then you're helped by the fact that Gukesh is just naturally slow and often gets you the situations where you're ahead of on time.
That might be true. But I do think that I think that's like that's oversimplifying it a little bit.
Am I not giving you enough credit for the problems you're causing, Gukesh?
I mean, I honestly feel like in the game against Gukesh, like I was not good at putting pressure on the clock. I thought I did not find any really challenging moves once he got this bishop to d3. So, I mean, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe the computer says what I did against him was completely fine, and I'm just insane. But my view of the game was that like I more or less got outplayed, and I just like I couldn't find plans quickly in that one. So maybe I'm insane, but that was my humanistic
Since
view of
since
everything.
since we are talking of time management, after one day, how do you feel about the 10+5 time control?
Time control is fine. I think for me, it's just a matter of getting back into form. I mean, obviously, I have played over the board chess recently, but there are two important factors. First of all, the quality of the opposition has been significantly lower. But then secondarily, I haven't really been in these situations where I've been low on time. So when you look at those two factors, it makes it quite different. And I think I'm definitely a little bit rusty. But if I can sort of keep my nerves together and play well when I'm, at 1 minute or 30 seconds, good things will happen. Of course, if I don't, I lose my mind. I mean, it's going to be a long event, but at least day one was successful in spite of not playing my best chess.
Are things turning around in this game?
I mean, it's looking much easier for Gukesh to play. Like the rook swings to g2, you have bishop h3 or bishop d3. I mean, I still think Fabiano's in great shape, but it is becoming easier to play. So that's what I would say. Also, I do see chat because I popped it out. For anybody who's wondering, that of course is Chris behind me. Little tidbit, but this is the room that he has. Because the room that I have at the other hotel, the Chase Park Plaza, the internet is pretty much non-functional. So I have to do the video. I have to do like this interview here, and I have to do the recap here in case anybody's wondering.
How do you maybe well, since Chris is there, he's been your long time second and friend. How do you prepare for an event like this one?
I mean, truthfully, I maybe looked at chess for about 30 minutes before today, and that was it. I mean, what I would say is that ordinarily it would have been a different situation. Not to like talk about the elephant in the room, but I did come here right after the tournament in Canada, and I was hoping to be able to prepare for the last like 3, 4 days. But as we know, unfortunately, Danya passed away, and so I had to go to the funeral. So the last couple of days, instead of having any been kick. Probably like 2 or 3 days before the event had began, I probably ordinarily would have started looking at stuff, but specifically for this one, I mean, I started looking at stuff this morning for about 30 minutes to an hour, and that was it.
Yeah, of course, a very challenging time for everyone to play here after the
Yeah,
event.
I mean, life moves on, obviously, but I would say that it's very it's very tough. It's very hard because it feels very very heavy. And I think from an emotional standpoint for a lot of us, it just feels kind of empty in a sense. But at the end of the day, once you get into the situation, once you're playing, and because the games are so fast with 10 minutes, you don't really have time to think about everything else that's going on. So yeah, I mean it's unfortunate, but you just have to do your best and. Just trying to do my best here. And Fabi has blundered the game away, right? He's just lost now, right?
Well, computer's saying he can go back, but that seems like a very big concession to make, considering that there's some bishop back and queen working for a checkmate against the black king.
Wait, did
Fabi
he
takes
actually just play rook takes d5? Isn't bishop e1 and queen c2 game? Wait, what? Huh? Isn't it?
computer's playing bishop f6, which is
Ah.
wild. But I was thinking bishop e4.
Oh, maybe it's not so easy. King h1, okay. Oh
You
man.
wanted bishop b1,
But
Hikaru?
still, I love King h1's a great move from Gukesh. Like a great move to play rook g1 and just crush on the g file. Actually, like brilliant move from Gukesh. Brilliant, brilliant move. Can't be understated how good this move is. Really, 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 really nice touch. Really, really
Also
nice touch.
gets out of the way of the black queen. The black queen is completely unable to defend the king.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is oh man, this is just rough. Brutal, brutal. Insane.
14 seconds left for Gukesh, but he might win it after all.
Yeah, like I said, I mean he's as I said in his games against me, and now the game against me, the first one, and this game, he's been very very good low on time, very very good. So really 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 good stuff to see. So yeah, and it's what it is. For anybody who's asking, by the way, about Chris, because I see people still making stupid jokes and everything else. He has been my longtime second. I've worked with him on and off since about 2006, I think it was. So basically before Gukesh was born. So we've been working together for a very, very long time. For anybody who's wondering, and usually, if you're lucky, you have the chance to work with one or two people for your entire career. And fortunately for me, that's been the case.
Shout out to Chris in the background. Meanwhile, we are about to see checkmate on the board here. What a game by
I mean,
Gukesh. What a
just great stuff from Gukesh. I mean, this is like really, 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 really nice. Really, really good stuff. I mean, just absolutely finding the right moves a long time. King h1, rook g1, bishop f6, just like really good stuff. Really, really good stuff. Just yeah, there are no words. It's just that good.
we
So
see Fabi.
Gukesh,
Mhm.
with this win, is actually going to take the lead. But as Hikaru touched upon earlier, today there's one standing, but tomorrow the points double. And so
Correct.
the importance just increases.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good. It's good that it's like that. I mean, you can have a situation where like I make this quick draw in the final game because it's day one and there's it doesn't really change a whole lot. But overall, I think it's good that you're in the situation where you have this added bonus, based on the game. So yeah, yeah. Rook g8, checkmate,
Very
boom.
nice.
Yes, yeah. I mean, just really really good stuff. Really really good stuff. So. Yeah, it's been a good day. So I mean, I think I'm gonna go now. Go do my recap. I'll be done by 4 o'clock. It's just a beautiful, beautiful first day. So really, really good stuff.
Hikaru, thank you so much for dropping by, for sharing your thoughts. Congrats on a good first day and best of luck for tomorrow.
Thank you. Appreciate it. See you guys. Bye.
See
See
you.
you.
Bye.
And Hammer, what a day of chess. I had such a fun time. I loved the time control. I think we saw so many spectacular games, so many turnarounds. I mean, a real treat.
I like that the breaks weren't too long. That kind of we just back in
Bang,
the
bang,
action.
bang.
Yeah. And the games were good, in
Yeah.
my opinion. I must admit, I thought Hikaru played a great game against Fabi, and Fabi played a great game against Hikaru. He didn't quite agree there.
We'll see.
But
Maybe he'll come around by the time of the recap.
chess players are usually at their most optimistic before they see all the miscalculations they made, according to the engines. But yeah, I'm looking forward to tomorrow. It's gonna be just as action packed. Unfortunately, tomorrow is gonna be without me.
Hammer's like, I'm looking forward to tomorrow, and I'm not here. Have fun, losers.
But the day after tomorrow will be even better with 3 points for the win. So yeah, good things to come.
Tomorrow,
This
I'm
week.
looking forward. I think it will be my first time commentating with Jennifer Shahadi, so I'm very excited for that. And Hammer, as you said, we'll see you back on Wednesday. I mean, Wednesday, tomorrow is gonna be very exciting with the win worth 2 points, but Wednesday, ooh la la, 3 points for win. I think no matter what, even, I mean, Fabi, let's face it, had a terrible first day, sits on 1.5 out of 6, but he's not out of the running. I think even by the end of tomorrow, unless it's a total disaster for a player, everyone will still be in with a shot.
Fabi with 2 winning positions against Magnus and a good position against Gukesh with a time advantage ends up getting half a point out of 3 in those. So very, very rough for him results wise. But yeah, I guess when the results are bad, your play hasn't been up to par either.
By the way, I think we're still looking for the Hikaru interview from St. Louis. So my understanding is we're going to play that for you guys before we see you off. Just awaiting confirmation, but I think we're going to take a quick look now at what Hikaru had to say in St. Louis. So let's listen in there.
With Hikaru, welcome Hikaru to the broadcast. How does it feel to play finally over the board?
Well, I mean, I have played some over the board chess recently, just not against the strongest opponents in the world. But I think the thing is that it's good to be back. I definitely feel like I'm a little bit rusty. I think it was pretty clear that I was very unhappy with the first couple of games, specifically against Fabiano. I mean, the first game I was unhappy with. Second game I was very unhappy with, even though I won it. And the game against Gukesh, I mean, to be fair, there was a moment when I probably could have forced a draw, but I tried to keep the game going, and Gukesh found some very, very good ideas. And then this last match, it seemed like Magnus kind of fell asleep at the wheel, or maybe it was preparation gone wrong. And I got a very easy position to play, and it actually was the best game of the day. So overall, I'm happy. I think with the format of the scoring of the points as well, there wasn't any real reason to keep going in the final game. So it's a good day.
Yeah, it feels like this, and especially this last victory against Magnus, I guess gives you extra self-confidence, which everyone needs in such fast time controls.
I mean, I suppose, but I think, again, the format's very unique here, so it's just one day. There are still 2 more days, but obviously it's nice to get a win against Magnus whenever it's possible. So, yeah, it's a good boost of confidence.
Exactly. Thank you so much for coming here, and I think it's time to run and check the game between Gukesh and Fabi. Thank you for being here.
Sure.
Thank you, Dash. Yes, I'm here with Magnus, who just finished his day #1 in the clutch chess. Magnus, your emotions today, how was it playing with this time control, with these opponents?
It was terrible, but I'm feeling like really not good at all. So I will say that I scored like about 2 more points than I should have probably today, and I'm happy with that. But my mind was not working at all today. So yeah, hopefully I can feel a bit better the next few days, because yeah, today my level of play was extremely poor.
Is it something about jet lag, or like just you're trying to come back?
No, jet lag is fine. I mean, I've slept really well the last 2 nights. I just, yeah, somehow after breakfast today, I just started feeling bad. So I just hope I'm not getting sick. And that's kind of my main priority at the moment.
Yeah, of course, we also hope that you'll be feeling better tomorrow. Any moment just which was like really crazy today, you just would like to point out for us?
Yeah, overall the games were awful, but
it didn't feel like this for us.
Really, no, they were absolutely awful, but they were, I mean, reasonably exciting as well. But they, today just was not fun at all.
Okay, didn't feel like this for us. Thank you so much, Magnus. I wish you all the best and feel better tomorrow, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Exactly, Dash. I'm here with the tournament leader, Gukesh. My congratulations. You're leading right now with 4 points out of 6. I don't know if you checked the standings, but you're the current leader. How this day was for you today?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, it started with the loss, but I was still happy with the game. And it was so funny, like that against Magnus in the final position, I had 93, which was not...
Did you know, speaking about this game, after 94, yes, that it's like a draw?
Yeah, 93, it was unbelievable for me. But okay, I was still quite happy. It was just that I missed bishop c5. So, and then the second game was already a clean game. Then against Naka, I mean, pretty much all the games were quite nice, except the last one. I was down on time and I was worse, but Fabi just played f5 and gave me chances. Yeah.
I was watching your play and I was watching all games, and I noticed that especially after this game with Nakamura, which you managed to win, you were like smiling, laughing at one point. Like, what made you smile after you won this game?
After I won,
yes,
I smiled.
Yes, you did. You were putting pieces back and you were like smiling. We caught this moment for our social media.
Ah, okay. I don't actually remember, but maybe I was just happy to get a win.
Very possible. And I mean, everything happens so fast. Like, how do you feel about this time control with 10 minutes and just 5 seconds increment?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's on the border of blitz and rapid, I guess. And yeah, it seems fun. And when you play well, it's always fun. Yeah.
Exactly. You just came from Greece, from Rhodos, where you got 2 golden medals. Then it was a long journey. How do you feel right now overall?
I feel good, actually. I slept well last night, and in general, it's fun to play some rapid after a few classical games. And yeah, always nice to play against such top players and keep learning.
Exactly. Did you have any trick how to switch from classical format now to the rapid? Because you just played with like long format.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a challenge, but I guess you just need to be constantly like adapting yourself to the requirements. Yeah, I mean, there is, even in classical, there is the long format, there's the short classical and all that. In rapid, there are so many time controls. So it's just that you make sure like you are ready for what is in front
next?
of you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And what do you think about tomorrow? Because yes, there will be a new day and we have different points. So victory will give you 2 points right now, and every game will have a different stake. What do you think about it? Like, do you have any strategy?
Yeah, I mean, the concept I quite like. That I mean, obviously the clutch, the name itself suggests that you need to like be ready for the clutch moments. So yeah, it'll be quite interesting, and I guess after all, no matter the points, the things happen on the board. Yeah, so if I focus on that, obviously the points will come.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Gukesh, for sharing all your thoughts, and I wish you good luck tomorrow. Thank you, and congratulations on the first day.
Thank you.
So there you had it. We heard from Hikaru, from Magnus, and from Gukesh. Gukesh, who understandably, Hammer, was in high spirits.
Yeah, it's been a very good day for him, and in my opinion, he's played some very good chess. He also got high marks from Hikaru himself, who said that Gukesh had been very, very good when he gets low on time, which he does have a habit of getting. He had been very good, both against Hikaru here in this game against Fabiano. he's really proven himself under that pressure where others may falter.
Meanwhile, we saw a very different Magnus, who was nowhere near as elated. He opened the interview with, "Oh, so how are you feeling? Terrible. How are things? Terrible." I mean,
Well,
to be fair, he did mention feeling unwell, which is never fun to play in that state. Sorry.
yeah, but I mean, given how terrible he was feeling, he can be very happy about the result today.
Yeah.
Because he was in trouble in so many games, and came out with a better than 50% score. So his play was not good today. And Magnus is a very honest guy. He will be the first to admit it, and was.
Mm-hmm.
But his number of points still puts him way up there after the first day. The problem is, if he doesn't see an improvement in his play, he's not going to be fighting for the tournament victory, because what he performed today was just not good enough.
Yeah, tomorrow a win will be worth twice as much. We'll be back. Well, I'll be back with Jennifer. I'll be back with you, Hammer, on Wednesday, same place, same time. That's 6 p.m. Central Europe time, and all the rest is really hard to calculate since we're all in different time zones, and some of us have switched times, some of us haven't. But same time as today. I'm sure you guys will be able to figure it out. For now, thank you so much for watching us today, Hammer. It was a pleasure to be reunited, and I look forward to seeing you on Wednesday.